Yo, what's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty. Become a member of the channel to access more content, the link is in the description. 5YT, Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-166,166, Public Riot. Pub Future ads. Haruki continued, the reason you have no place to live and no food to eat is because of those black-hearted merchants and monopolistic tycoons in Nibi no Jutsu who disregard you. They use exorbitant prices to drain your savings in a short time, squeezing out your last bit of survival money. Then they drive you out of your shelters, attempting to bind your hands and feet with invisible chains and cut off your hope with sky-high food prices. They want you to kneel forever, remain silent forever, and forever be their enslaved cattle. Haruki surveyed the refugees below the stage. Is it fair? Is it reasonable? Can you continue to endure this? Look around you. How many people work from dawn till dusk, yet still go hungry? How many people labor honestly, yet possess nothing? We must change. We must change. These merchants will not show kindness. The only path to change is first to stand up ourselves, unite, clench our fists, and fight for everything we deserve. Today, in Nibi no Jutsu, we will achieve housing for laborers and food for workers. We will break their monopolized granaries and reclaim our right to eat. We will ensure that the fruits of labor are shared by all laborers. Those who work more get more. Those who do not work shall not eat. This is the only righteous justice. What we want to destroy are the old rules and order that devour people without shedding blood. What we want to build is a new Nibi no Jutsu where everyone is equal, resources distributed according to labor, without exploitation, and without oppression. One person's strength is weak, but when thousands upon thousands of us suffering people unite, we become an unstoppable iron torrent. Friends, do not be afraid. Great endeavors always experience difficulties. Behind us is justice, is truth. Our goal is to allow every one of us to live with dignity. Pub Future ads. Stand up. Cast aside fear and hesitation. Join us, for our common future. Those willing to follow me, to break this iron house together and fight for our bright future. Please raise your hands and let out your roar. Let us stand together, fight together, and triumph together. Let us personally create a new Nibi no Jutsu. Haruki's voice echoed throughout Nibi no Jutsu. The refugees stared at him, dumbfounded. Ding. System detected Yahiko's faith value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Nagato's faith value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Conan's faith value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Refugee A's faith value plus 3000. The system's notification sounds echoed in Haruki's mind. It was as if he heard celestial music, clearing his ears. What a beautiful sound. The refugees looked at the young man on the stage, then at their own hands. When war erupted in the land of grass, every fleeing family brought all 3 generations' savings. But when they arrived at Nibi no Jutsu, in just 5 short days, all these savings were plundered by the merchants of Nibi no Jutsu through sky-high accommodation and food prices. The merchants swept them out, leaving them to sleep on the streets, becoming beggars. Since then, they had to endure hunger and cold. They watched helplessly as their wives, children, husbands, parents, brothers, and sisters died one by one from cold and hunger. If they didn't want to die, they had to sell their bodies like Masato and his group, becoming slaves to the merchants. But even the chance to become a slave was very slim. These merchants wanted to drive them to a dead end, extinguish their human will and dignity, and make them into people who wouldn't cry, wouldn't resist, and had no self. No, could they even be called people then? The part that made them human had disappeared, making them even less than beasts. The refugees knew that if things continued this way, there were only 2 paths ahead of them. One was a dead end. The other was a path to survival worse than death. But no one wanted such a path to survival. Since the outcome was destined to be death, why should they wait to die? Even if they were to die, they would drag those people to the afterlife with them. Moreover, someone was already helping them, wasn't he? Someone was on their side. The refugees looked at the ninjas around them and at Haruki and his group in front. Don't worry. We will protect you, because we are like-minded companions. Yahiko seemed to sense the refugees' hesitation. He stepped forward and said firmly. In the crowd of refugees, someone raised a hand. Then came the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, countless hands. Finally, it was everyone. They gazed silently at Haruki, their eyes gleaming with firm resolve. The path was almost at its end, so let them burn themselves brightly. In the distance, the shop doors were tightly shut. Tomita paced back and forth in the room, his neck and face flushed red, veins throbbing. Bastards! These pigs! How dare they resist? The ninja leaning against the wall acted as if he heard nothing. Muramasa, that traitor, he actually went to help those filthy commoners. The ninja lifted his eyelids and glanced at Tomita. You. Tomita suddenly looked up, staring at the ninja. You quickly rendezvous with the ninjas of the other bosses, and you all go together. Kill them all for me. Tomita stopped the ninja, a fierce glint in his eyes. No, don't kill them all. Leave them, I want to torture them slowly. Tomita clenched his fist and stared at the ninja. We've provided you with good food and drink. It's time for you to repay us. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 167167. Battle for Nibi no Jutsu. Pub Future adds. The atmosphere in Nibi no Jutsu's central plaza was fervent. Refugees queued to register their names and identification details. Haruki entrusted the registration task to Nagato and Konan. The two of them were more meticulous. A total of 21,000 faith points have been collected. Your cursed spirit Suguru Geto's rank has risen to 52%. The system's prompt echoed in Haruki's mind. He cast his gaze around. After the events of last night, some of Nibi no Jutsu's shops had their doors tightly shut today. Haruki knew these merchants wouldn't open their doors until he was dead. These merchants valued their lives more than anyone. Papa, does this mean we won't have to sleep on the streets anymore? A scrawny child, holding his father's hand, asked curiously. The man, who looked at least 10 years older than his actual age, felt a sudden pang in his eyes upon hearing his son's words. He nodded. Yes, we'll have a house to live in from now on. Not only will we have a house, but we'll also be able to eat our fill like today. An old man with a grizzled beard said. His deeply lined face was filled with hope. A young man beside the elder's eyes flashed with a hint of worry. Can we really succeed? Hearing him say this, the elder beside him patted his arm and said, Young man, don't be more timid than us old folks. Sometimes, you need to have faith in the world. Otherwise, you'll never be able to change your life. The young man paused, looking at the elder beside him, and slowly nodded. Grandpa, you're right. Our lives can't get any worse, so why not go all out? The elder nodded with satisfaction. That's the right way to think. He looked at Haruki standing on the high platform and sighed deeply. I've lived so many years, eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. I'm a good judge of character. These people are trustworthy. They're willing to work hard for us, so what right do we have to let them down? Pub Future adds. Not just the young man, but everyone around the elder was stunned when they heard his words. That's right. If people who had no connection to them were willing to fight to change their lives, what right did they have to shrink back? How many such people would they meet in their lifetime? Everyone's gazes gradually became resolute. The refugees discussed their new lives and Haruki's recent speech. They never used to discuss such things because they had no future. But now, it was different. The refugees were filled with beautiful aspirations for their future lives. They discussed animatedly while queuing. No one noticed the dark figures quietly appearing on the rooftops of the buildings surrounding the plaza. Except for Haruki. Haruki, what are you looking at? Yahiko was talking to Haruki, but noticed his gaze was fixed on the distance. He curiously looked in the direction Haruki was staring. Some black dots appeared in his vision. Yahiko's pupils constricted. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. A black dot fell from high above, incredibly fast. Then came the second, the third, the 10th. 10 dark figures simultaneously leapt from the surrounding tall buildings. They wore dark suits, with hoods covering their faces, leaving only narrow slits for their eyes. The ninjas adjusted their postures in midair, like falcons locking onto their prey, and with a flick of their arms, countless shuriken whistled as they shot towards the crowd. The refugees slowly raised their heads. What greeted them was a sky full of shuriken. The refugees' bodies froze in place. Their eyes were wide open, watching death approach infinitely closer. The seemingly static scene moved in an instant. The refugees scattered like startled birds, but had nowhere to go. The ninjas landed lightly, their long swords glinting in the sunlight. They were terrifyingly silent, rushing towards the refugees at high speed. Defend! Kojiro, Genra, and Muramasa's voices rang out simultaneously. Countless dark figures shot out from beside them, their weapons parrying the long swords striking at the refugees. The shadows of the shuriken grew larger and larger in the refugees' pupils. They could feel the sharp edge approaching them. A mother knelt on the ground, hugging her young, innocent daughter, shielding her with her body, tears falling onto her daughter's head. The daughter looked around in confusion. The pain did not come. The refugees opened their eyes, and were stunned by the scene unfolding before them. Countless shuriken were suspended above their heads, not falling, as if pulled by invisible threads. The next second, these shuriken, as dense as raindrops, vanished from above their heads. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of shuriken embedding into walls and floors came from a distance. The shuriken had actually appeared out of thin air above the shops opposite them. They rained down like a downpour on the rooftops, doorways, and walls of the shops. The refugees stared at the scene in stunned silence. Haruki lowered his hand that had been manipulating space. That had been Takako Yuro's cursed technique, sky manipulation. Amazing. Yahiko's face was blank with shock. He stared in the direction of the shops, unable to snap out of it for a long time. Just then, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Haruki said to Yahiko, "Yahiko, go fight. Use your hands to protect those you want to protect." Yahiko's pupils dilated, his figure flashed, and he unhesitatingly rushed into the fray against the surprise attacking ninjas. Under the protection of Kojiro and the others, the refugees continuously retreated, still shaken, looking at the ninja and samurai blocking their way. "Muramasa, why? Why did you betray Tomita? Why did you join these people? Don't you think your actions are foolish?" The ninja fighting Muramasa struck with his sword, mercilessly, leaving a long wound on Muramasa's arm. Hiss! Pain struck, and Muramasa gasped, blood quickly soaking his sleeve. He held his sword, his eyes showing no retreat. The ninja fighting him was a ninja who, like him, was supported by Tomita. However, the opponent's strength was much greater than his. "Because I want to retrieve the soul I lost," Muramasa said, enunciating each word as he looked at the ninja before him. "What's so important about that?" The ninja continued to slash at him with his sword. Muramasa struggled to cope, accumulating more and more wounds on his body, but he never put down the sword in his hand. "No, that is the most important thing. If one even loses their soul, what's the point of living? To live in ignominy. Humans are creatures that need meaning and value to survive." Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 168,168. Who is the pathetic one? That's you, not me. Don't use your views to represent us. A ninja only needs to survive and complete his mission. The ninja in front of Muramasa showed no emotion, his eyes were cold, and his attacks grew more ferocious. Muramasa's entire body was almost dyed red with blood. His arms, chest, and legs were covered in fresh cuts. As the so-called regaining of your soul, as you put it, to die here. That's pathetic. The ninja walked towards Muramasa, blade in hand. Muramasa knelt on the ground, and if it weren't for the blade in his hand supporting his body with difficulty, he might have collapsed long ago. "The truly pathetic one is you. I die for my own choices, for my own ideals, what about you? Oh, you die for others' commands." A faint smile appeared on Muramasa's pale face. There was no fear of death on his face. He was content. Behind Muramasa, the refugees were constantly retreating. They looked at Muramasa's back, their pupils filled with disbelief. These ninjas, were they actually protecting them with their lives? Haruki's earlier speech content involuntarily surfaced in their minds. From the moment they announced their joining, there was no distinction between ninja, samurai, and refugees here. They were all comrades. Comrades with shared ideals, fighting side by side. An old man held his grandson tightly in his arms. He whispered to his grandson, "Don't look, close your eyes, don't be afraid." But the little boy in his arms opened his eyes wide, watching the ninja approach Muramasa. The ninja raised his blade high. Red blood dripped from the blade. Muramasa's back fell into the little boy's eyes. "It's like Dad." Dad also stood in front of him like this before he died. Suddenly, the little boy broke free from his grandpa's embrace and ran towards Muramasa without hesitation. "Don't kill my dad, don't." The little boy stretched out his hands, standing in front of Muramasa just as his dad protected him. Muramasa's pupils suddenly constricted, and fear appeared on his face, a face that had shown no fear in the face of death. "No." Muramasa reached out towards the little boy. The long blade fell. Just then, the air suddenly became heavy and viscous. A suffocating sense of oppression surged from all directions. Time seemed to slow down. Even the ninja's movements showed a momentary hesitation. The long blade stopped an inch from the little boy's neck. The wind in the square suddenly stopped. Unease enveloped everyone's hearts. The sky suddenly darkened. Everyone in the square involuntarily looked up. Black mist gathered above their heads, obscuring the sky and covering the sun. Like dark clouds, it enveloped the earth. A huge claw suddenly stretched out from within the black mist. That hand was large enough to easily crush a person into a pulp, its nails sharp, longer than the sharp katana in the ninja's hands. A massive figure emerged from the black mist. Rika let out a deafening roar at the attacking ninja, revealing her jagged fangs. The refugees were so terrified they couldn't even scream. Even the ninjas were stunned by the monster before them. Everything before their eyes exceeded their scope of understanding. How could such a monster exist in the world? This monster was hundreds of times more terrifying than the intel suggested. Their bodies seemed to be freezing. Haruki, standing on the high platform in the square, had a stern look in his eyes as he said, "I said, we are comrades. We are friends with shared ideals. I will protect every single one of you." The attacking ninjas involuntarily retreated slowly, and at the same time, they quickly reacted, throwing shuriken and kunai at Rika, but these attacks were like tickling Rika. Rika waved her giant hand, immediately knocking down all the shuriken and kunai flying through the air. Ads by PubFuture. Rika's temper was not very good to begin with. Such provocation infuriated her. Her massive body, moving with elusive speed, appeared above the ninjas. A huge arm swung out violently. A strong gust of wind immediately swept across the square. Seeing the giant claw coming towards them, the ninjas retreated in horror, trying to dodge, but Rika was too close to them. Rika was too fast. Their brains reacted, but their bodies couldn't keep up with their brains' reactions. It was too late. Rika's giant hand swept across. The ninjas were struck flying like swatted flies, crashing into the building walls around the square, emitting bone-chilling sounds of breaking bones, then sliding limply to the ground, no longer moving. The little boy stood frozen in place, watching the ninja being blown away. He slowly raised his head, looking at Rika in front of him. It was she who had saved him and his dad. The little boy's eyes sparkled with admiration. The remaining ninjas began to attack Rika together. They attacked simultaneously from different directions. Kunai with explosive tags were thrown at Rika. Rika waved her large hand, sweeping the kunai away. The explosive tags exploded violently by her hand. The explosion was deafening, and smoke filled the air. When the smoke cleared, an unharmed giant claw reached out towards the ninjas. What's going on? How could it not be injured by the explosion? Even if it's huge, the explosive tags just now should have been enough to blow off its arm. Haruki looked at the attacking ninjas who were in self-doubt, and let out a cold laugh. How could Rika be defeated so easily? Rika is a cursed spirit, only wounds made by cursed energy can harm her. Rika's arm swung out again, accurately grabbing the remaining ninjas. No, don't kill us. 10 popular foods you should never eat after 50. Cardiologist. How to lose a hanging tummy quickly. Quote. Rika grabbed the ninjas, who were like toys in her hand. They watched helplessly as Rika's gaping maw drew closer and closer. Cold sweat drenched their clothes like heavy rain. Their faces were impossibly pale, their teeth chattered, and their constricted pupils were filled with fear. Rika held the ninjas. Without Haruki's command, she dared not crush the ninjas into a bloody mist on her own. The ninjas, held in her hand, suffered mental attacks that were almost driving them insane. As the immediate crisis was resolved, a strange silence fell over the square. Haruki walked down from the high platform, and the refugees automatically made way for him. He knelt down in front of Muramasa, placing his hands on Muramasa's chest, his hands glowing green, and the wounds on Muramasa's body healed rapidly at a visible rate. Haruki smiled and sincerely said, "Muramasa, you have proven with your actions that our ideals will ultimately be realized." Tears sparkled in Muramasa's eyes. He looked at the clear blue sky, tears streaming down his face. The feeling of fighting side by side with comrades, it was still so wonderful. This was the life he truly wanted. For a time, no one among the refugees spoke, no one moved. They looked at Haruki and the ninja and samurai before them. Their eyes were filled with gratitude and emotion. End of chapter. New book, Naruto. Reborn with a template system. Satoshi transmigrated to the world of Naruto and became an ordinary Uchiha. Facing the night of genocide 3 years later, he had a headache. Thankfully, at the critical moment, he successfully activated the template system, acquiring Tobirama's template at the start. Flying Thunder God, master of forbidden techniques, ninja world scientist, and even sage arts, all of them were mastered. Tobirama has become the head of the Uchiha clan. Reward: no side effects when using Mangekyo Sharingan. From then on, Satoshi bore the surname of Uchiha, but became the splitting image of the second Hokage. Until one day, when Orochimaru used Edo Tensei, Tobirama was stunned when he saw the white-haired, red-eyed Uchiha kid who was skilled in all kinds of forbidden techniques. How come this naturally evil Uchiha brat looks exactly like me when I was young? Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's template. C-169,169, Merchant's Judgment Day. Pub Future adds. The square was packed with people. The refugees stood, their tattered clothes fluttering slightly in the wind, revealing gaunt frames and purplish skin underneath. Having just experienced a life-or-death crisis, many of them hadn't fully processed what had happened, but their eyes had changed. When Haruki and his companions first arrived at Nibi no Jutsu, the refugees huddled against the walls had empty eyes. Nothing could be reflected in their pupils. They were deeply huddled, indifferent to the aroma of food wafting from the shops. It wasn't indifference. Rather, they knew their place. They didn't dare to look, or even to smell. Under prolonged oppression, they had grown accustomed to restraining themselves. Haruki treated the injured ninja and samurai one by one. The ninja and samurai watched their wounds heal quickly, their eyes filled with an indescribable emotion. The emotion wasn't just from the healing of their wounds. More importantly, after being injured, they had companions who cared, worried, and treated their injuries. Unlike before, when they could only silently lick their wounds, afraid of being discovered and losing the chance to take on missions. Ding. System detected Ninja A's gratitude value plus 1000. Ding. System detected Ninja B's gratitude value plus 1000. Ding. System detected Ninja C's gratitude value plus 1000. A total of 13,000 gratitude value has been collected. Your gratitude curse growth value has risen to 27%. Haruki only withdrew his hands after everyone's wounds had healed. He turned and looked at the refugees behind him. He stretched out his hand, pointing to a whole street of shops opposite. Pub Future adds. You have endured for too long. Now, rush in and rescue your lost companions. Tie up those who oppressed you and bring them out to face judgment. Now, they no longer have ninja to protect them, but you have countless like-minded companions standing by your side. A happy life is earned with your own hands. Go and reclaim all the rights you were born to enjoy. Quote. Haruki's voice echoed over the square. The refugees stood stunned, guttural sounds of pain escaping their throats. They stared intently at the shops opposite. Could they really do it? Could they truly achieve it? The refugees gulped hard. Mommy was taken by them. I'm going to bring Mommy back. I want Mommy. In the crowd, a little girl let out a piercing wail. She pushed through the crowd, her bare feet covered in scabs and blisters. She ran desperately across the ground, sprinting towards the shops opposite, her tears trailing a watery streak in the air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, countless. More and more refugees ran towards the shops opposite. Their eyes were wide with fury, their faces and necks flushed crimson, veins bulging, yet their eyes shimmered with tears of pain and anger. They called out different names. The owners of these names had either turned into withered skeleton, or had disappeared behind the tightly closed back doors of the merchants' shops in Nibi no Jutsu. The rioting crowd surged like a flood towards the shops on the opposite side of the square. The roars almost overturned the entire Nibi no Jutsu. At this moment, inside a shop opposite the central square, the owner, Takahashi, had tightly locked the door, trembling all over from the vibrations coming from the ground. After locking the door, he searched for a hiding place within the two-story building. His gaze fixed on an overturned counter, and he swiftly climbed over it, squeezing his corpulent body behind the counter. His obese body was curled up, like a piece of pork cut open on a chopping board, sickeningly greasy. Takahashi's breathing was rapid, and his heart pounded wildly. He occasionally peeked his head out to glance at the door. These commoners have gone mad. They actually dare. Takahashi's words were cut short. His pupils instantly widened in terror. His door had been broken open. With a loud bang, the door slammed violently against the wall. Countless people squeezed into the shop. Innumerable hands reached out from behind Takahashi. Ah! Takahashi's terrified screams were drowned out by the enraged roars of the refugees. The refugees rushed forward, almost without thinking, their eyes red. As their hands touched Takahashi's greasy flesh, a surge of wild power immediately coursed through their bodies. It was impossible to tell whose hands had forcibly dragged Takahashi out from behind the overturned counter. Takahashi let out a pig-like squeal, flailing his limbs wildly, but he was suppressed by the flood-like refugees. Rope. As soon as this thought arose in the refugees' minds, someone had already found hemp ropes from somewhere. Countless hands passed the thick hemp ropes, used for bundling goods, to the dozen or so people closest to Takahashi. They held Takahashi down tightly. The ropes bit into Takahashi's corpulent flesh, tied so tightly with dead knots, as if to break his bones. Death. That would be too easy for them. The despair that the refugees had once experienced, they should all experience it too. Takahashi screamed in pain. Such a situation was happening in other places as well, not just Takahashi's shop. More and more shops were broken into by refugees, who dragged out the hiding merchants from their rooms. More merchants were dragged to the center of the street. One after another, they were tightly bound and thrown onto the cold ground. The former bosses now lay like pigs and sheep awaiting slaughter. The square had become a judgment ground. Throughout Nibi no Jutsu, almost all the wicked merchants were dragged out by the refugees they had once bullied. The ninja and samurai, to prevent the refugees from getting too emotional and beating the merchants to death, would hand them thick hemp ropes at critical moments. Merchants who had packed their bags and prepared to flee were also quickly tied up and brought back. Those ordinary citizens who had not bullied the refugees escaped. They dared not make a sound, keeping their doors tightly shut, and opening a small crack in their second-story windows, from which they secretly watched the scene outside. Suzuki of the Full Moon Steamed Bun Shop stood at the end of the street, watching the chaos in the square, a flicker of worry in her eyes. In the square, an old woman, so old she was just skin and bones, pounced on a short, fat merchant, her claw-like hands gripping his lapels, her voice sounding as if it had split open. "Where is my son? Where did you sell him? He's only 15. You tell me, speak. Where is he, you beast?" Such scenes played out in various parts of the square. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 170,170. Will the oppressed become the oppressor? Pub Future ads. Takahashi struggled desperately. His face was a mix of fear and a lingering arrogance. Even when he was already in this situation, he still didn't believe these commoners would dare to harm him. He screamed hoarsely, trying to drown out the angry shouts around him. You ungrateful beasts. Rebellion. This is an uprising against heaven. He suddenly twisted his head, his small eyes, squeezed by fat, glaring viciously at the surrounding refugees. You ungrateful bastards. If it weren't for us giving you food, you would have rotted by the roadside long ago. Those useless brats, even if we left them with you, they'd just starve to death. Selling them off gives them a chance to live. It's a blessing. What do you know? A bunch of ungrateful. There were many merchants like Takahashi who, even at death's door, remained defiant. The refugees looked at them in disbelief. A blessing. Their loved ones' eyes were filled with terror when they were forcibly taken away. Even now, they could still remember the eyes of their family members. Every night, Those eyes were like red-hot branding irons repeatedly searing their chests, reminding them not to forget. And their suffering, in the eyes of these people, was not worth mentioning. These people saw their atrocities as benevolence. They deserved to die. Every day and night living here was filled with torment. The merchants, oblivious to their impending doom, spewed more words in front of the refugees. Pub Future adds, "You should kneel and thank me. If I hadn't hired a doctor to treat your daughter, she would have died long ago. I at least let her live for 2 more months. A bunch of ungrateful wolves. You ignorant commoners deserve to go hungry your whole lives. If you're full, you'll cause trouble." Quote. A sharp ringing filled the refugees' ears. All they could see were the merchants' mouths, opening and closing, spraying spittle. Their mouths were adorned with gold teeth, and their gazes were still condescending. "Bastard, you tortured my daughter to death." Quote. Countless arms swung up, plundered dignity, shattered hope, silent sobs in the dead of night, the helplessness of watching loved ones being taken away, the pain of losing family. All of it converged in these raised fists. Bang, bang, bang. Dense fists landed on the merchants' faces and chests. The sound of bones breaking was clearly audible. Blood spurted violently from the merchants' nostrils and mouths. Blood-stained teeth flew to the ground. The merchants' pig-like squeals turned into inarticulate whimpers. Their arrogant demeanor was gone. Their entire bodies slumped like puddles of mud. Their bodies twitched unconsciously. The refugees clenched their fists tightly. Their knuckles were skinned, stained with blood, and sticky. Their arms trembled slightly from overexertion, but they seemed to feel no pain. They opened their mouths, unable to make a sound. Hot liquid streamed down their faces. After an unknown amount of time, countless mournful cries finally squeezed out of their throats. Tears overflowed madly from their eyes, washing away the dirt on their faces. Their eyes, cleansed by tears, became incredibly clear and bright. Looking at the merchants lying on the ground, what surged in the refugees' chests was not the joy of revenge, nor the anger that wanted to burn everything, but sorrow. A sorrow that almost tore their chests apart. No matter what they did, their departed loved ones would never return. Terrible sorrow flowed like venom in the refugees' veins. All their limbs and bones ached. This pain gathered in their eye sockets, turning into hot liquid that flowed out. Finally, they could cry. They could finally cry. Never before had they so clearly realized that they were human, that they had come back to life. The pain and anger were so painful, so hot, yet so real. The refugees stood surrounding the merchants, breathing heavily, looking at the writhing lumps of flesh on the ground, tears streaming down their faces. The wind swept across the square. It could not disperse the thick hatred. It also could not disperse the burning fighting spirit. Crying sounds sounded from beside Haruki. Woo woo woo. Yahiko sobbed, tears continuously overflowing from his eyes. When Haruki looked at him, he immediately turned his head guiltily, and only looked back at Haruki after wiping away his tears. "Just now, the wind blew sand into my eyes," Yahiko said, choking back a sob. "Haruki, did the wind blow sand into your throat too?" Haruki didn't say much. He looked at Nagato and Konan on the other side. Nagato's expression was somewhat complex, while Konan's eyes were red. "What are you thinking?" Haruki stared at Nagato. Nagato was gazing intently at the group of refugees. "I'm thinking, will they become like these people in the future?" Nagato blurted out unconsciously. Haruki raised an eyebrow in surprise. "No, how could that be?" Before Haruki could answer, Yahiko said firmly. He looked at the refugees and took a deep breath. They have experienced such pain. How could they possibly inflict such pain on others again? Nagato lowered his eyes. Haruki whispered into Nagato's ear, "For refugees, they have experienced extreme deprivation, injustice, and violence. Profound trauma may cause some of them to develop extreme hatred for oppression, but some may also develop an extreme craving for power, because having deeply experienced the pain of weakness, they develop an instinctive pursuit of power that can prevent them from being victimized again, such as wealth and authority." Nagato slowly looked up, gazing at Haruki. Haruki looked into his eyes and said, word by word, "But Nagato, this is the meaning of our existence, the meaning of our ideal's existence. Our existence is to establish a peaceful order and distribute resources fairly." He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Ideals are the lighthouses that guide us not to fall into the abyss, and we are also the bright lights that guide them not to fall into the abyss. Nagato stared blankly at Haruki. So, we must hold fast to our ideals, Haruki said to Nagato and the other two. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 171,171, equal distribution. The setting sun, red as blood, dyed the vast square a crimson hue. The air was filled with dust, sweat, and a faint smell of blood. Ragged refugees, men, women, old people, children. They were like weeds that had been ravaged by a hurricane and then stubbornly regrown, packed densely in the square. Their eyes were no longer turbid, no longer filled with pain, but rather full of hope and anticipation. They were still themselves, but they had been completely renewed. At this moment, all the refugees' gazes were fixed on the figure on the high platform. That figure was not tall, even a little thin, but it filled them with a sense of security. As long as he stood there, he was like the sun, bringing warmth, hope, and strength to people. Haruki's gaze swept over the crowd. Everyone stared at him intently, waiting for him to speak. Haruki's gaze settled on the three people, Kojiro, Genra, and Muramasa. His voice carried an undeniable decisiveness. Comrade Kojiro, Comrade Genra, Comrade Muramasa. A hint of confusion flashed in Kojiro's eyes. Genra asked directly, Haruki, why are you calling us, comrade? What does comrade mean? Muramasa also looked at Haruki curiously. Haruki smiled and explained, comrade means a companion with shared ideals. Calling each other this makes us feel closer and reminds us to always remember our ideals. He looked at the dense crowd of refugees before him and said, from now on, we will address each other as comrade. His voice spread throughout the square. The refugees called out this unfamiliar term with novelty. Comrade, 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 quote. They called out to each other. This address seemed to genuinely possess magic. The distance between them was inexplicably shortened by this term. Comrade Kojiro, Genra deliberately called out. He had a brilliant smile on his face. This address isn't bad at all. Kojiro nodded. Indeed, this address could quickly bridge the distance between people. Kojiro looked at Haruki, who stood at the highest point, a bright light flashing in his eyes. What an amazing person. Kojiro was certain that Haruki would definitely change the ninja world in the future. Comrade Kojiro, Comrade Genra, Comrade Muramasa, move out. Lead our comrades to inventory and register all the assets of the merchants of Nibi no Jutsu one by one. Grain, cloth, gold and silver, residences, land deeds. Every stitch and thread must be recorded. Ads by PubFuture. Kojiro, Muramasa, and Genra all knew Haruki's plan, so they didn't have the slightest doubt or hesitation, and they responded in unison, yes. Comrade Haruki. Haruki immediately felt the heavy burden of the task on his shoulders. The refugees in the square watched him with bated breath. They didn't know what he was going to do, but they trusted him. A person who would help them rise up and protect them was definitely not a bad person. After Kojiro, Muramasa, and Genra led the ninja and samurai away, Haruki looked down at the countless gaunt faces below the platform. He took a deep breath, and his clear, powerful voice rang out again. Comrades, just one address made countless people tremble. Today, right here, we will personally break this man-eating order. The wealth of Nibi no Jutsu no longer belongs to any exploiter. I announce that after our comrades have inventoried and registered them, all houses and land confiscated from the exploiters will be fairly and justly distributed by the distribution committee formed by our comrades to every comrade who needs it. We will ensure that tillers have their land. Residents have their homes. We will ensure that the fruits of labor return to the laborers themselves. A deathly silence lasted for several minutes. The refugees looked at Haruki, who had said these words, in disbelief. Distribute. Distribute to them. Is this true? After several minutes of silence, the refugees suddenly erupted into a frenzy. New natural hack ignites rapid fat burn. No diet or exercise needed. 10 foods to never eat when you're over 50. What? Give them to us. Houses. Land. Is it true? Oh my God. I'm not dreaming, am I? We actually survived to this day. I never dreamed this day would come. Quote. Unbelievable ecstasy instantly overwhelmed everyone. The refugees stood stunned, erupting in earth-shattering cries and cheers. We're saved. We're saved. This is actually true. He didn't lie to us. Thank you, Haruki-sama. Thank you for your grace, Lord. The refugees. Waves of gratitude rose higher and higher. The refugees spontaneously surged forward, wanting to get closer to the high platform, closer to Haruki, who had brought them hope and vitality. However, facing their gratitude, Haruki on the high platform showed no joy. He looked at everyone sternly, his voice overpowering all the cheers. I said, in the new Nibi no Jutsu, there are no lords. All of us are comrades who build peace, maintain peace, and spread peace. If everyone is truly grateful to me, please call me comrade. Red light illuminated the earth. Listening to the repeated calls of comrade around him, Haruki showed a satisfied smile. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-172, A New Beginning. Pub Future Ads. Chapter 172, A New Beginning. Haruki's words were like a bolt of lightning, cleaving through the mist of the refugees, old notions, and like a spring breeze, blowing away the dust of humility that had settled in their hearts. The refugees felt a deep, soul-shaking emotion and awakening from him. They gazed intently at Haruki, their backs gradually straightening, tears in their eyes, as they raised their rough, calloused fists. They shouted with raised arms, "Long live Comrade Haruki!" It was as if a spark had fallen into dry tinder. The sound grew louder and louder, as if it would call for a new heaven in the ninja world. Long live the comrades! Long live the laborers! A surging wave of sound erupted. This cry was filled with an unprecedented, immense power. They were no longer refugees begging for alms. They were comrades, who had found an organization, clarified their path, and shared a common identity. Countless eyes blazed as they looked towards Haruki on the high platform. In those gazes was trust, support, and a resolute willingness to follow him through fire and water. A powerful new cohesion, based on equality and common ideals, was forming majestically and irresistibly under the blood-red setting sun. Haruki looked at the thoroughly awakened crowd below, seeing their once ashy faces radiating with new life, and he broke into a brilliant smile. Ding! System detected civilian A's faith value plus 3000. Ding! Pub Future Ads. System detected civilian B's faith value plus 3000. Ding! System detected civilian C's faith value plus 3000. Currently, a total of 170,000 faith points have been collected. Your cursed spirit Suguru's rank has risen to 69%. The sunset finally sank below the horizon, but Nibi no Jutsu's new sun was just beginning to climb. The distribution of houses, fields, and other assets in Nibi no Jutsu took a full 3 days to complete. When the last land deed and the last key were solemnly handed by Kojiro to an old woman whose hands trembled with excitement, Haruki's initial plan finally succeeded. People gathered in the square once again. This time, their identity was no longer that of homeless refugees in Nibi no Jutsu, but new residents of Nibi no Jutsu. Haruki surveyed every face below the platform, each bearing traces of unshed tears. He took a deep breath, his voice clearly echoing across the entire square. Comrades, feel the land deeds in your hands, feel the keys in your pockets. Countless gazes below focused on their own pockets. The land deeds and keys pressed against their chests seemed to emit warmth, making their entire bodies feel warm. From this moment on, the land beneath your feet, the houses before your eyes, truly and completely belong to you. No landlord will ever again be able to arbitrarily raise your rent, leaving you nowhere to go. This is what you earn through struggle. Haruki paused. Suddenly, his gaze became extremely sharp, sweeping over everyone present. But comrades, Haruki's voice abruptly rose. Possession does not mean an end, but a brand new beginning. We smashed an old, man-eating world, not to create a new world that is equally cold and numb. We have gained land and houses, and even more, we must possess the ability to manage it, protect it, and make it better. We are not bandits occupying mountains. We are revolutionaries pursuing new lives and building a new world. Therefore, we must be clear. What kind of collective are we? Haruki's question plunged the crowd into silence. They looked at Haruki blankly. They had never deeply considered this question. But Haruki's question still struck their hearts, prompting deep reflection. We are a fair and just collective. We are a collective free from oppression. We are a collective of mutual help. Every one of us is a comrade. What we should do is not vie for power and profit, but strive to build Nibi no Jutsu into an even better place. To pass on our courage to fight evil and our firm will to protect peace. Haruki looked around at everyone. Shouts of agreement sounded from the crowd. That's right. We must build Nibi no Jutsu better. Haruki nodded in satisfaction. Whatever their true thoughts, at least this was what they expressed. Afterward, he would increase propaganda efforts and establish educational programs, striving to subtly ignite the spark in their hearts. Haruki continued, now that the distribution work is complete, the second thing we need to do is a preliminary survey. Haruki called out Kojiro, Muramasa, and Genra. Immediately lead all comrades who can read and write, divide into small groups, bring paper and pens, and go door to door to register. The content to be registered is the household head's name, family population, the location of the allocated fields, and the location of the house for each household. Remember, be gentle in your attitude, and accurate in your records. This is not an investigation, not an interrogation. This is our preliminary survey of each comrade's situation, the first roster of our new collective's birth. Haruki reminded them earnestly. Understood, Comrade Haruki. Kojiro and the other two nodded. Similarly, this preliminary survey will also be accompanied by the unfolding of subsequent work, so please, all comrades, cooperate. As soon as Haruki finished speaking, a response immediately came from the crowd. We will definitely cooperate with the work. Haruki. He didn't want their cooperation but the cooperation of the original residents of Nibi no Jutsu. The refugees. Information had already been registered, and it was checked again during the distribution, with no issues. However, Haruki estimated that the original residents would also cooperate with the preliminary survey. After all, the ninja standing at the entrance had a certain deterrent effect. Although threatening them was not Haruki's original intention, well, it was Haruki's original intention. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 173,173, Anticipation for tomorrow. Haruki still had one more announcement to make. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, I hope everyone, at least one representative from each household, will come to this square. After Haruki finished speaking, confusion appeared on everyone's faces. Come back here. For what? Is there anything else left to do? I don't know. But Comrade Haruki must have his reasons for saying so. That's true. The square was abuzz with discussion. Haruki's powerful voice rang out, answering everyone's questions. Tomorrow, we will hold the first Workers' Representative Conference of our Nibi no Jutsu in this square. Workers' Representative Conference. Everyone looked at each other, puzzled. Haruki's gaze swept across the crowd, and he nodded solemnly. Yes, the Workers' Representative Conference. After everyone quieted down, he spoke. We now have homes, we have land, and our lives will only get better. However, there are inevitably disputes between neighbors, public hygiene needs to be maintained, collective safety needs to be upheld, and the elderly, weak, and isolated need assistance. These fragmented matters, yet crucial to the personal interests of every comrade, need to be resolved by the comrades themselves. Our affairs, we decide. Our problems, we solve. Therefore, at tomorrow's meeting, we will hold an election. From all the comrades of Nibi no Jutsu, we will elect excellent comrades who are fair, warm-hearted, and willing to serve everyone, to form a workers' consultative council. No one had ever heard such novel terms. For a moment, they were all stunned. They looked at each other, their faces full of confusion. Haruki, of course, knew they didn't understand the meaning of the term. Before explaining to these people, he had to emphasize one fact first. They are not officials and certainly not people who ride roughshod over comrades. Haruki paused, then solemnly stated the core point: they are the public servants of the comrades. They are the attendants who serve all of us. Their power is granted by all of us for the convenience of getting things done. Their responsibilities are to help us mediate disputes, to organize us to maintain hygiene, to assist in distributing collective resources, and to reflect our difficulties and opinions. They have no special privileges, only more hardship and dedication. If they do not perform well, act unfairly, or put on airs of an official, we can remove them and replace them at any time through the conference. Everyone, tell me, is this good or not? It's too good. Ads by PubFuture. So good that everyone couldn't believe it. Is this real? But thinking that the person who had proposed this method was Haruki, they felt it was normal. Only Haruki could come up with such a good idea. Only Haruki truly thought for them. After a brief silence, there was a chorus of agreement that exploded like a thunderclap. Good. Too good. It should be like this. We'll choose ourselves. Trustworthy ones. Serve the comrades. Everyone felt a warm current surge through their bodies. This was an unprecedented and novel experience. Looking at the flushed faces below, red with excitement and anticipation, Haruki smiled with satisfaction. The seeds of socialism had taken root in this land, in the hearts of these people. Haruki cleared his throat and once again showed his very approachable smile. All right, comrades, everyone, go back. Haruki waved at the people below who were still reluctant to leave, his voice much gentler. Go back to your homes. Get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow morning, gather in the square, and together we will personally elect the comrades who will serve us, and together we will discuss our own future. Everyone's faces were beaming with joyous smiles. They looked back at Haruki on the high platform every few steps, their eyes filled with trust and gratitude. Thinking of the workers' representative conference to be held tomorrow, everyone's hearts were filled with excitement and exhilaration. I can't believe it. As he lay in bed, preparing to sleep, Haruki suddenly heard Yahiko's voice. Conan nodded in agreement. Yes, we've changed the lives of so many people. We're about to change the entire Nibi no Jutsu. Haruki glanced in Conan's direction. Tomorrow, he must suggest that Conan sleep in her own room. They were all grown up, and it couldn't go on like this forever. Conan was a girl after all. There are differences between men and women. Yahiko was also nearing puberty. They couldn't keep sleeping together forever. Inappropriate, problematic conduct must be corrected. Haruki, it's because of you. It's you who led us to achieve all of this. Yahiko looked at Haruki, his gaze burning. Haruki closed his eyes and said, it's all of us who achieved all of this together. Yahiko was stunned, his lips curled up. You're right, it's the result of all of us working together. Yahiko also closed his eyes. Tomorrow will definitely be a beautiful day. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 174174, Election Process. The next day, in the morning, the sun had just risen above the horizon. When Haruki arrived, the square was already bustling with people. The residents of Nibi no Jutsu gathered there, their faces beaming with a new kind of radiance. The square had been meticulously arranged. On the high platform was a long wooden table. The table was covered with clean coarse cloth. A large stack of rough, white paper, and several writing brushes and ink sticks were placed on top of the said table. To one side of the long table, 3 sealed wooden boxes were prominently placed. Above each box, only a slit wide enough for one hand to pass through was left. The words, mediation, livelihood, and sanitation, were written in thick ink on each box. These were the important tools for today's assembly, the ballot boxes. Among the crowd, the ninjas had shed their usual sharpness from missions, dispersing around the venue to guide and maintain order. When the golden glow of the morning sun finally completely bathed the square, illuminating everyone's faces clearly and brightly, Haruki, Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan walked to the front, behind the long table. Haruki did not speak immediately. Instead, he slowly scanned the dense crowd below with a calm, powerful gaze. His gaze met countless eyes filled with eagerness, trust, and anticipation. The clamor in the square naturally subsided. Good morning, everyone. Haruki's voice rang out, carrying a steadiness that belied his age. Good morning, Comrade Haruki. The masses enthusiastically extended their hands to greet Haruki. Haruki followed his heart and showed a brilliant smile. Today, we stand here to convene the first Workers' Representative Conference of Nibi no Jutsu. As Haruki's words fell, they immediately triggered thunderous applause. Haruki shyly extended his hand to motion for quiet. The applause gradually subsided. A few days ago, we distributed land and houses, solving the fundamental issue of survival. But what we want is not merely to survive. What we want is a new life of dignity, order, and happiness. The masses listened attentively to Haruki's speech. What Haruki said was exactly what they were thinking in their hearts. He had voiced their innermost thoughts. Everyone loved listening to Haruki speak. Haruki continued, "For Nibi no Jutsu to develop better and better, we need people to take the lead in handling our common affairs and to solve the problems we will inevitably encounter in our daily lives." Haruki patted the 3 ballot boxes and said to everyone, "Therefore, today's assembly is to elect the most fair, most enthusiastic, and most willing comrades among us to serve everyone. We must ensure that the method of election is fair. It should be just and capable of reflecting the true wishes of every comrade." Haruki paused slightly, then slowly announced the election rules. First, broad nomination. Anyone can stand up and nominate a candidate you deem suitable, or even nominate themselves. But please note, you must explain your reason for nominating or self-nominating. What aspect of service do you believe they can do well for everyone? The nominated person also has the right to refuse on the spot. Ads by PubFuture. Second, public review. For every candidate nominated, we all have a pair of eyes, and we all have a standard for judging right and wrong. Anyone can ask them questions, and also add to their merits. The comrades we want to elect are good comrades who can withstand scrutiny and gain everyone's recognition. Third, Before the election, I want to tell everyone a rule. The term of office for each elected person is tentatively set at 1 year. After 1 year, we will reconvene the assembly for everyone to evaluate their work and decide whether to re-elect or replace them. If, during the term, it is found that they act unfairly or abuse their power for personal gain, at any time, as long as more than 1/3 of the comrades jointly propose it, an extraordinary assembly can be convened to initiate impeachment proceedings. After Haruki finished speaking, the people below were dumbfounded. Ding! System detected Nibi no Jutsu resident A's faith value plus 1000. Ding! System detected Nibi no Jutsu resident B's faith value plus 1000. Ding! System detected Nibi no Jutsu resident C's faith value plus 1000. Currently, 50,000 faith points have been collected. Your cursed spirit Suguru's rank has risen to 74%. After the shock, the crowd quickly erupted into a fervent discussion. They had never imagined that an election could be so fair, so transparent. Being the first to be their own masters, everyone felt incredibly excited. Good. This is great. Fair. We will all respect the people elected this way. Voting is good. No one will know who voted for whom, so we can choose the one we truly believe is best. Haruki was worried they wouldn't understand the rules, so he simplified them. Seeing that everyone understood, he waved his hand and said, "Then, I announce that the first Workers' Representative Conference of Nibi no Jutsu officially begins. Now, we proceed to the most important election segment of this assembly." Applause and cheers immediately erupted like thunder. Today was destined to be a day that would go down in the history of the entire ninja world. Kojiro personally led the supervisory team to inspect the ballot boxes for sealing, then publicly opened the voting slots. Muramasa directed the samurai and ninja to organize people to line up neatly to receive paper, write the names of the person they wanted to be elected, and then sequentially walk past the 3 ballot boxes, dropping the papers with the names into the respective boxes. The entire process was solemn and quiet. People's expressions were serious, and they carefully held the papers with the names. Everyone followed the rules and cast their precious votes, including Haruki, Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. Among the 4 of them, they did not know whose names the others had written down. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C. 175,175, Overthrow the Feudal System. PubFuture ads. The voting concluded. Under everyone's gaze, the supervisory team led by Kojiro opened the ballot boxes on the spot. They poured out the papers from each ballot box and loudly counted the votes. Genris swiftly recorded the numbers on paper. Mediation Post, Ichiro Yamamoto, 132 votes. Livelihood Post, Haruna Watanabe, 155 votes. Sanitation Post, Ritsuya Kobayashi, 139 votes. Each time a number was announced, a cheer or encouraging applause erupted from the audience. Finally, the top vote-getters for the 3 positions were announced. The elected individuals were so moved that tears welled up in their eyes. They waved to the people of Nibi no Jutsu, facing the morning glow. These were rare highlight moments in their ordinary lives. The election concluded. The masses cheered happily. Long live the laborers! The cheers were like a tsunami, soaring to the sky. This sound declared the end of an old system. At the same time, it also declared that a new era, where laborers were their own masters, had begun on this land that had endured so much suffering. Pub Future adds. The sun shone brightly, and all things were full of vitality. The meeting concluded. Haruki sat on the tatami mat. Beside him sat Yahiko and his 2 companions. In front of him sat Kojiro and his 2 companions. Haruki would not stay in Nibi no Jutsu indefinitely. He had more important things to do. That was to earn emotional points. The emotional points collected by staying here was too positive. He also needed to collect negative emotional points. And Nibi no Jutsu was close to the Land of Grass, and the Land of Grass had been at war recently. Haruki had already designated the Land of Grass as his battlefield for collecting emotional pointa. Battlefields were always the best places to collect negative emotional points. Before leaving Nibi no Jutsu, he would definitely arrange its future affairs. Since he had started it, he would be responsible. But being responsible did not mean he had to constantly oversee Nibi no Jutsu's growth. He was a leader after all. What leader personally handled every single matter? It was most appropriate to prepare the plan, assign tasks, and let his subordinates carry them out. Haruki handed Kojiro a plan. Kojiro took it blankly and asked, "What is this?" He opened it and saw a line of large characters on the first page, overall plan for the construction of Nibi no Jutsu Revolutionary Base Area. Kojiro. He looked at Haruki in shock. He could hardly believe how Haruki had accomplished this. How could a young man have so many mature ideas? And even compile them into a plan? Haruki's gaze swept over Kojiro, Muramasa, and Genra, and he said seriously, "To achieve our ideals, we must start from practical matters, from the construction of the base area. To build the base area, we must unswervingly implement the ninja-armed separatist line." Haruki wanted to do something big. Accelerate the development of the ninja world and overthrow the feudal system. We must closely combine ninja struggle, people's revolution, and base area construction, radiating outwards from Nibi no Jutsu in a wave-like manner, eventually forming a consolidated revolutionary stronghold. Our ultimate goal is to overthrow the oppressive rule of the feudal daimyos and military shogunate, establish a new regime where ninja, samurai, and the common people are their own masters, and achieve universal equality and world peace. Haruki's words had a profound impact on everyone present. I know our power is too weak now, but I am confident that we will grow stronger and stronger. Kojiro couldn't help but laugh. Of course I believe it too. It's precisely because I believe you have such power that I decided to follow you. Muramasa and Genra nodded. During their time together, they had already seen Haruki's talent. Perhaps he could truly bring about great changes to the world. Thank you for believing in me. Haruki smiled and continued, for the development and construction of your Nibi no Jutsu, you must adhere to the Akatsuki's leadership in all work. Remember to mobilize the power of the masses, do not fight alone, and flexibly apply all policies based on the actual situation of Nibi no Jutsu. Haruki emphasized, although we do not provoke war, and certainly do not participate in conflict, we must not neglect the construction of armed forces. Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan were utterly confused, completely unable to understand what Haruki was saying. With the experience of his predecessors, Haruki spoke fluently, unify and reorganize the existing ninja and samurai into the Nibi no Jutsu Revolutionary Army. You three, who have joined the Akatsuki, will jointly lead it. Military training for ninja and samurai must be strengthened, and disciplinary education must also be conducted. All actions obey commands, take not a single needle or thread from the masses, all captured goods must be turned over. Speak courteously, trade fairly, return borrowed items, compensate for damaged items. Do not hit or scold people, do not damage crops, do not molest women, and do not mistreat prisoners. Of course, the prerequisite for doing this is to provide high rewards for the ninja and samurai's missions. Kojiro and his two companions nodded. If the ninja and samurai had high mission commissions, they would not stoop to plundering others, nor would they harbor rebellious intentions. Compared to being supported by wealthy merchants in the past, ninja and samurai preferred a life of earning commissions by completing tasks with their own strength. There are also matters such as economic development, cultural propaganda, and democratic construction, all of which I have detailed plans for in the plan. There is one more important thing that must be emphasized. That is talent nurturing. Kojiro, Muramasa, and Genra all knew the importance of this matter. We must not only establish ninja schools but also educational schools for ordinary people, and even adult continuing education schools. Strive to convey our ideals to more people, Haruki said to Kojiro and his two companions. In short, it was literacy. As they listened, Kojiro and his two companions suddenly sensed something was amiss. Why did it sound like Haruki was making his last arrangements? My crows are left in Nibi no Jutsu, you can communicate with me through the crows. Yahiko and the others know what to do. As Haruki's words fell, Kojiro and his two companions realized their ominous premonition had come true. Haruki, where are you going? The first person to ask was Yahiko, who was beside Haruki. Yahiko looked at Haruki blankly, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Why was Haruki suddenly leaving? Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C. 176176. Farewell, Nibi no Jutsu. Pub Future adds. Everything was developing in a good direction. They had achieved things they never dared to dream of before. The people of Nibi no Jutsu adored them, and the cancerous tumors had been removed. Nibi no Jutsu was like a spring sprout after a heavy rain, full of vitality, about to begin its vigorous growth. At this moment, Haruki said he was leaving, that he was going to leave Nibi no Jutsu. What kind of joke was this? Nibi no Jutsu was only able to reach this point today because of Haruki, but at such a crucial time, he wanted to leave. How could Yahiko accept this? He couldn't accept it. Why did Haruki always have to leave them? Why did Haruki always prioritize other things over them? Haruki. Conan's voice trembled, her eyes filled with deep fear and unease. Why had it come to this again? Why do you have to leave again? Conan's eyes were already red. Watching this scene, Kojiro and the others tacitly remained silent. Their gazes shifted back and forth between Haruki and the other three. Kojiro and the others had always been able to tell that the relationship between these four youths was extraordinary. But they hadn't expected the bond between the four youths to be so deep. When one person left, the remaining three felt as if a part of their body had been taken away. Pub Future adds. And Haruki's presence seemed to be the center of the entire team. His departure, for the remaining three, was like their hearts disappearing. Only Nagato remained silent. He quietly looked at Haruki, waiting for his explanation. Yahiko, Conan, and Nagato's reactions were all within Haruki's expectations. He looked at Yahiko and Conan, saying helplessly, because I have more important things to do. Yahiko said loudly, what could be more important than achieving our ideals? Haruki smiled, his gaze burning as he looked at Yahiko. Nothing is more important than achieving our ideals. What I am going to do is to achieve our ideals. Yahiko was stunned. Conan sniffled, looking blankly at Haruki. Although the war in the Land of Rain has stopped, the war in the ninja world is still ongoing. Haruki had barely finished speaking when Yahiko eagerly said, but we don't have the power to stop the war in the ninja world yet. Didn't you say it, Haruki? We have to accumulate strength first, to have the power to stop the war. Yahiko used Haruki's past words to try and stop him. Haruki lowered his head, saying helplessly, yes, we indeed don't have the power to stop the war right now. But I still can't stand by and watch others suffer. When I saw the refugees in Nibi no Jutsu, I thought, there must be many more people in the Land of Grass who need help. I want to help them. I may not be able to stop the war, but I can heal their wounds. At least I can protect them. Haruki slowly raised his head. After his gaze swept over everyone, he said seriously, moreover, I can also spread our ideals while helping others, attracting more people to join us. What about Nibi no Jutsu? Yahiko looked at Haruki. He didn't want Haruki to leave. Yahiko, Conan, Nagato. Haruki called out their names one by one. Then, he looked at Kojiro and the other two. And Kojiro, Genra, Muramasa, I am very relieved to leave Nibi no Jutsu to you. You will lead Nibi no Jutsu to grow, won't you? Haruki looked at them with hope. Kojiro sighed helplessly. I thought you were the most mature among them, now it seems I was mistaken. To want to go to the land of grass, that's truly bold. That place is the battlefield of Iwagakure and Konoha. Getting caught in the war can lead to death. Kojiro's eyes held worry. I know. Haruki nodded, a gentle smile on his face. I am not someone who hasn't experienced a battlefield. It is precisely because I deeply understand the horrors of the battlefield that I want to go to the land of grass to save more people. To know that there are people in the world suffering greatly and yet remain indifferent is too difficult for me. Deep compassion was revealed in Haruki's eyes. Now that the matters of Nibi no Jutsu are finally resolved, I feel relieved. I can finally go to the land of grass. Haruki showed a sense of relief. I'll go with you. Nagato, who had been silent, suddenly blurted out this sentence. Yahiko and Konan looked at Nagato in shock. Haruki immediately refused. No, Nagato, the battlefield is very dangerous. I won't be a burden to you. Nagato stared intently at Haruki as he spoke. You are not a burden to me. I just don't want to put you in danger. Haruki shook his head firmly. If Nagato stayed by his side, it would be difficult for him to collect negative emotion points, and he was afraid his persona would collapse. If Nagato goes, I'll go too. Yahiko seemed not to have heard Haruki's refusal and quickly expressed his stance. Then I'll go too. Konan, as if afraid of being left behind, followed closely. Haruki, do you think the battlefield is an amusement park? On the battlefield between Iwagakure and Konoha, even Haruki would have to develop stealthily, let alone Yahiko and Konan. Nagato barely had the strength to protect himself. You stay here and help me look after Nibi no Jutsu. Haruki said to Yahiko and the others. Only by entrusting Nibi no Jutsu to you can I feel at ease. Haruki said, looking at Kojiro and the other two, and Yahiko and his two companions. But we're very scared. Konan sniffled. The battlefield was too terrifying. They were afraid Haruki wouldn't come back or they would receive some terrible news. Konan. Haruki held Konan's hand. I promise you, I will definitely return safely. Our dream has only just begun, how could I possibly leave you? Konan sniffled. She looked at Haruki and said, we'll be in Nibi no Jutsu, you must remember to come back and see us often. Haruki breathed a sigh of relief. If he said that, Konan and the others should give up on going to the land of grass with him. Okay, I promise you. I will definitely come back to see you often. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 177177, Disobedient Nagato. Pub Future adds. As dawn approached, Nibi no Jutsu was still deep in slumber. A sliver of pale light appeared on the horizon, and the streets were so quiet that not a sound could be heard. Every household had its doors tightly shut, immersed in sweet dreams. A figure walked through the streets of Nibi no Jutsu, covered in morning dew. His footsteps were silent, his figure lean and strong, and a long katana was strapped to his back. The morning air is truly refreshing. Haruki stretched and yawned. Haruki had chosen to sneak away early. He didn't even say a proper goodbye to everyone else. Why did he do that? Emotional points. When they wake up and find I'm gone, the emotional impact will be much stronger. Maybe I'll even get another surge of emotional points. Thinking of his destination, Haruki rubbed his fists together. Land of grass, here he comes. He was here to harvest emotional value. Nibi no Jutsu was built on the border of the land of rain, close to land of grass, so the distance to land of grass was very short. Stepping out of Nibi no Jutsu, a vast grassland stretched before him, with grass growing so tall it almost reached his calves. The green grass undulated gently with the wind, like rolling green waves. If he kept walking straight, he would soon reach land of grass, but Haruki didn't move. He stood in place, slowly turning around, and as expected, he saw a familiar figure. Pub Future adds. Nagato's red hair was blown by the wind, and he stood 10 meters from Haruki, looking at him with resolute eyes. Haruki. Nagato had changed. He was no longer as obedient as before. Haruki, I'm coming with you. Nagato walked step by step until he was in front of Haruki. His voice was not loud, but it was as firm as a rock. Haruki stared at him, a little at a loss. Nagato, The battlefield is very dangerous. His words were cut off before he could finish. I know. Nagato nodded. He was ready to accept everything. He wouldn't be a burden to Haruki. He just wanted to help Haruki, and he also wanted to become as strong as Haruki. This strength wasn't just physical power, but also mental fortitude. But Yahiko and Konan. Haruki's words were interrupted once more. I believe Yahiko will take good care of Konan, and I also believe they will take good care of Nibi no Jutsu. Isn't that you're in his dream? This was the first time Haruki had seen Nagato speak so many words in one breath. Sigh. Haruki let out a helpless sigh. His gaze fell on Nagato. Having Nagato accompany him wasn't without its benefits. At least he could copy Nagato's Rinnegan abilities. And he could also absorb Nagato's emotional value along the way. Nagato looked at Haruki stubbornly and firmly stated, I won't leave. He had already prepared to follow Haruki yesterday. He was different from Yahiko and Konan. He didn't have the same deep emotional attachment to Nibi no Jutsu as Yahiko and Konan did. He didn't want to stay in Nibi no Jutsu forever. He wanted to be with Haruki. He knew that as long as he followed Haruki, he would find the direction of his heart and grow. This was something he found difficult to achieve by staying with Yahiko and Konan. Since you've caught up, what else can I do? Haruki put his arm around Nagato's neck and led him forward. Did you leave a letter for Yahiko and Konan? Haruki asked, looking at Nagato beside him. Nagato nodded. Then let's hurry up. We don't want them to wake up and chase after us. Haruki quickened his pace. Nagato nodded seriously. Their speed increased, and by the time the sun was overhead, they had entered Land of Grass. Haruki looked around. There wasn't a single person on the grassland at the border of Land of Grass. Ding. System detected Yahiko's anger value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Konan's anger value plus 3000. Total anger points collected is now 6,000. Your cursed spirit Jago's rank has increased to 56.35%. Haruki paused in his steps. It seemed Yahiko and Konan had already discovered that he and Nagato were gone. Haruki quickly put Yahiko and Konan out of his mind and, with Nagato, ventured deep into the heart of Land of Grass. Finally, in the hottest part of the afternoon, a small cluster of buildings appeared before them. Haruki said to Nagato, let's go in and take a look. Nagato nodded. Though called a cluster of buildings, it was actually just 5 or 6 small bungalows. A crow flapped its wings and soared overhead. Haruki frowned and said, no one, not a single person. Since there was no one, that meant there was no danger. Haruki pushed open the door closest to them. The wooden door let out a creaking, old groan, and dust fluttered down. Haruki quickly stepped back and fanned the air with his hand. Dust covered every part of the room, which had become a spider's nest. Haruki and Nagato continued to explore the other houses, and the situation was the same as the first room. Perhaps they left Land of Grass to flee the war. Haruki speculated. A crow swooped down from high above and landed on Haruki's shoulder. He reached out and stroked the crow's soft feathers. Take us to a populated town. The crow pecked his palm, then flapped its wings again and flew high, heading into the distance. He looked at Nagato and said, let's keep going. Although they had been traveling for most of the day, he and Nagato were both ninja after all. For ninja, traveling for 2 days and 2 nights straight was not a problem. Haruki and Nagato followed beneath the crow high in the sky, continuing their journey. In the distance, 3 ninja appeared on the path Haruki and Nagato were destined to take. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-178178, encountering Minato. 3 figures swiftly moved through the bushes. The scent of blood wafted from their bodies. Suddenly, the last person stumbled, almost falling to the ground. He quickly knelt, supporting his body. Fugaku. The yellow-haired ninja in the lead immediately stopped and turned back, crouching beside Fugaku. Fugaku's face was pale, and fresh red bloomed on the bandages wrapped around his waist. His breathing became rapid, veins bulged on the back of his hands, and the torment of pain caused large beads of cold sweat to cover his forehead. I'm fine, Minato. Fugaku gritted his teeth and shook his head at Minato, who was supporting his arm. Minato's eyes were filled with deep worry as he looked at Fugaku's waist wound. How could he be fine? He knew how deep that cut was. If it weren't for his failed jutsu, Fugaku wouldn't have been so severely injured trying to save him. Kazu, standing beside them with one hand on her hip, stared at Fugaku and said unceremoniously, "Stop pretending to be strong. Even if you don't die at the hands of Iwa ninjas, you'll die on the road from excessive blood loss." Her tone was sharp, sounding somewhat unfeeling, but Fugaku and Minato understood her personality. "You two stay here, I'll take care of the item," Kazu said without a doubt. Minato gave a wry smile. He was extremely bad at dealing with overly assertive women. Fugaku coldly refused. "No, this is a mission for the three of us. I can't leave it to you alone." "Hey, what time is it now?" Kazu frowned and said forcefully, "Can you even move right now?" "To save time, I must go complete the mission first. Even if I can't move, I must." Fugaku borrowed some of Minato's strength and slowly stood up from the ground. His gaze swept from Kazu to Minato, and he said calmly, "We have no choice now. Iwagakure's pursuers are right behind us. None of us can stop." Kazu's eyes fell on the increasingly red bandages on Fugaku's waist. Her face was tense as she said, "If I go, at least you two can find a place to hide. In your condition, let alone fighting Iwa ninjas, you'll have fainted long before you reach the mission location. Stop dawdling, they're already closing in." Kazu closed her eyes, then suddenly opened them, her expression grave. She turned sharply, no longer wasting words with Fugaku, and ran into the distance. Soon after, Fugaku and Minato caught up with her. Seeing their figures, Kazu gritted her teeth. She didn't understand why a mission that could be completed with just her sacrifice had to cost 3 lives. Minato's gaze swept over Fugaku's pale face. A deep sense of guilt flashed in his eyes. If only he could perfectly control Flying Thunder God. "Wait." Kazu's expression changed slightly. Minato looked at her and asked, "What happened?" Kazu was a sensory ninja. Her sudden change in expression meant there was a problem ahead. Could it be Iwa ninjas? How could they move so fast? Or was this a trap set for them? But Iwa ninjas had no reason to go to such lengths for just the 3 of them. "There are 2 people ahead." Kazu's face was slightly pale. "Are they Iwa ninjas?" A sharp glint flashed in Fugaku's dark eyes. "No." Kazu frowned, a hint of confusion in her eyes. "They don't seem like Iwa ninjas. One of them doesn't even have chakra." Kazu's words made Minato's expression turn serious. "Are they civilians?" Minato glanced behind him. They wouldn't harm civilians, but it was hard to guarantee that Iwa ninjas wouldn't, especially civilians appearing here. There are people ahead, they're ninja." Nagato stopped, his Rinnegan staring straight ahead. "I know." Haruki, beside him, nodded. He hadn't expected to coincidentally encounter Minato and his 2 companions who were on a mission. Crows flew in the vast sky. Their dark pupils locked onto the ninjas below. "Should we avoid them?" Nagato asked. "They are Konoha ninjas," Haruki said. Nagato's pupils constricted. His Rinnegan seemed to pierce through space, falling upon the 3 Konoha ninjas heading towards them. Nagato disliked Konoha ninjas, but Jiraiya was an exception. Jiraiya was different from other ninjas. On the other side, should we save them? Kazu lowered her gaze, a trace of reluctance flashing in her eyes. Minato pursed his lips. "No." Fugaku's voice reached Kazu and Minato's ears. Fugaku's expression was cold, his refusal without hesitation. "We can barely protect ourselves, we can't save them." Facing the gazes from Kazu and Minato, Fugaku's pale lips formed a straight line as he said calmly. "And it's best not to let them get involved with us. That way, they might still have a chance to live. If they get involved with us, they're as good as dead." Fugaku frowned tightly, one hand clutching the wound on his lower abdomen, his breathing rhythm changing. "Fugaku." As soon as Minato spoke, Fugaku immediately stopped him. "Don't mind me, keep going. The mission is the most important thing." Minato gritted his teeth, his fingernails digging deep into his palms. He must master Flying Thunder God. He must protect his comrades. In front of Minato and his 2 companions, 2 dark figures gradually became clear before their eyes. They were 2 young boys, their faces still bearing traces of youth. In Konoha, they would likely be fresh graduates from the academy, still full of youthful innocence. Kazu and Minato's expressions immediately changed. Even in Fugaku's icy eyes, a hint of emotion appeared. No one could bear to watch two innocent boys die in a ninja war. Even ninja with blood-stained hands could not calmly accept two boys being cruelly murdered at such a young age. Minato closed his eyes, then opened them again, accelerating towards the two boys. I'm going to save them. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-179179. Interrogation session. Should we make a move? Nagato clenched his fists, his Rinnegan, obscured by his long red hair, locked onto the three ninjas approaching them. He could clearly feel that these three ninjas were coming for them. One of the ninjas was severely injured. He and Haruki might not be able to handle them. As early as when he secretly followed Haruki out of Nibi no Jutsu to the land of grass, Nagato had prepared for anything. A cold killing intent emanated from him. Haruki's hand landed on Nagato's shoulder. Nagato, relax. He looked at Nagato, his gaze shifting to Minato and his two companions, who were less than 20 meters away. I don't sense any ill will from them. Nagato glanced at Haruki beside him. He knew that Haruki, due to his curse, was extremely sensitive to others' emotions, but in the land of grass, he dared not let down his guard. Even if Haruki said they had no ill will, he would not relax his vigilance. Let's see what they want to do first. Haruki said. Their conversation was in extremely low voices. Nagato nodded obediently, looking at the three ninjas who had arrived before them. Kazu stood in front of Haruki and Nagato, questioning them sternly. Are you civilians from the land of grass? How did you end up here? Don't you know this place has already become a battlefield? Minato's gaze fell on Haruki, his eyes gentle. The young man's black hair was soft, his eyes were the blue of peacock feathers, and his fair, small face looked very well behaved, clearly a gentle and obedient good child. Minato explained, don't be afraid, we are Konoha ninjas, we won't hurt you. He was worried that Kazu's attitude might cause fear in the two youths. There's no time for explanations. Kazu shouted at Minato. She glanced behind her and said, Iwa ninjas are getting closer. Take them with us. Kazu scooped Haruki off the ground and ran forward. Sister. Haruki was stunned. Could you ask for my opinion? Nagato was stunned for a moment, staring intently at Kazu's back. Sorry, you come with us too, otherwise, if the Iwa ninjas catch up, you might be in danger. Seeing Kazu carry away the young man, Minato could only pick up the red-haired young man. Speaking of which, the other party's red hair made him feel very close. It reminded him of Kushina, waiting for him to return safely in Konoha. Thinking of Kushina, Minato's heart grew even softer. Nagato was startled, his body fell into a warm embrace. Just as Haruki said, these people had no ill will. Minato and Fugaku quickly caught up with Kazu ahead. What are your names? Where are you from? Kazu looked at the long sword on the young man's back in her arms, thinking their identities were not simple. We came from the border of the land of rain. Haruki said. Why? Kazu asked curiously while hurrying along. If I remember correctly, the war in the land of rain ended a long time ago, didn't it? Why aren't you staying in the peaceful land of rain? The land of grass is very dangerous right now. Almost everywhere has fallen. A hint of helpless bitterness was revealed in Minato's eyes. He didn't want to participate in the war, but he had no choice. He had people he needed to protect, and he also had to protect Konoha as a Konoha ninja. We know. Haruki nodded. We lived for a while on the border of the land of rain near the land of grass. There are many civilians who fled from the land of grass at the border, and their lives are miserable. Haruki's words made Minato and his companions' hearts sink. They knew that the tragedy of the land of grass civilians was caused by them. Even if it wasn't entirely their responsibility, they were one of the culprits behind the civilian tragedy. Knowing the land of grass is so chaotic, you still dared to come. Kazu's tone involuntarily became stern. She glanced at the young man in her arms and the young man in Minato's arms. The red-haired young man was unusually quiet. Haruki looked into Kazu's eyes and said seriously, it's precisely because we know the land of grass is chaotic that we chose to come to the land of grass. What? Kazu's pupils constricted, and she involuntarily heightened her vigilance. Why? She realized something was wrong. An ordinary young man suddenly being taken away by ninja would certainly not be so calm. But she didn't sense the presence of chakra in this young man. Put me down. Haruki said kindly to the beautiful sister in front of him. Kazuo explained seriously, can't stop. We have Iwagakure pursuers behind us. Do you know what pursuers are? If they catch up to us, we might die. Of course I know, I've also been on the battlefield. Haruki's words made Kazuo's body stiffen. She instinctively let go, and Haruki's feet landed steadily on the ground. Before introducing ourselves to you, I think I should first treat his wounds. Haruki walked towards Fugaku. His wounds are very deep. If not treated in time, he will die from excessive blood loss. Haruki looked at Kazuo and Minato. Kazuo was stunned. Minato, however, looked as if he had found a lifeline. He put down Nagato, grabbed Haruki's shoulders and asked, you can use medical ninjutsu. Haruki nodded. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's template. C 180,180, healing the suspicious Fugaku. Pub Future adds. A bright light suddenly bloomed in Minato's eyes. Excellent. He hadn't expected to be so lucky. Kazuo's shocked gaze fell on Haruki's head. He looks so young, can he really do it? Fugaku's injuries weren't light, were they? The shock in Kazuo's eyes quickly turned into doubt. Nagato came to Haruki's side. He wasn't surprised that Haruki had told these people about his ability to heal. Because Haruki is such a kind person. Seeing someone injured, he would definitely lend a hand. Haruki walked towards Fugaku, but Fugaku coldly snapped. Stop. Minato was stunned, looking at Fugaku in confusion. Fugaku, what's wrong? Why not accept medical ninjutsu treatment? Fugaku looked at Minato, closed his eyes helplessly, and said with a sharp gaze, their sudden appearance on our mandatory path is already suspicious enough. Now there's even someone among them who can use medical ninjutsu. Don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? He wasn't as easily fooled as Minato. Minato's gaze slowly fell on the two boys. It was indeed too much of a coincidence, but he believed he wouldn't misjudge people. Nagato frowned. These ungrateful ninjas. Pub Future adds. Haruki proactively offered to treat them, and they actually suspected him. Nagato. Noticing Nagato's fluctuating emotions, Haruki patted Nagato's shoulder. He looked at Fugaku, whose eyes were full of vigilance, and said, you are the ones who appeared on our mandatory path. You are more suspicious to us. I'm only saving you because you're injured. Anyone injured who appears before me, I will save. Whether this person is a Konoha ninja or an Iwa ninja, it doesn't matter to me. In my eyes, they are just an injured person. Haruki quietly looked at Fugaku before him. Fugaku met the gaze of the boy before him. Damn it, he couldn't find any trace of lying on the boy's face. Fugaku, just try it. Minato looked at Fugaku worriedly. At this moment, Kazuo, unable to bear it any longer, pressed down on Fugaku. Please, Kazuo said to Haruki. Haruki nodded, skillfully untying the blood-soaked bandage from Fugaku's waist. Kazuo warned Fugaku, who was still unwilling to give up and wanted to struggle, hey. Just be obedient for now. Don't waste time. We can't waste any more time. If your wound can stop bleeding, our actions will be faster. Hearing Kazuo's words, Fugaku stopped struggling. He didn't want to become a burden to his teammates. Fugaku's dark eyes stared intently at the black-haired boy before him. As long as this black-haired boy made the slightest unusual move, he would immediately draw his sword. Haruki looked at Fugaku's abdominal wound, frowned, and then glanced at Fugaku. The Uchiha clan are indeed legendary ninja kings. If this wound had fallen on anyone else, that person would have died of pain halfway through. The wound was long and deep, the flesh was turned up, revealing a bloody mess inside. Dark red blood continuously seeped from the wound, and the clothes near the wound were completely soaked. With the wound exposed to the air, Fugaku twitched slightly from the pain. Haruki didn't hesitate, placing his hands above the wound. A soft light rapidly poured out from his palms. A soothing, fluid-like power enveloped Fugaku's wound. The wound began to heal at a visible speed. The itch of flesh regenerating made Fugaku let out a muffled groan. Soon, the gruesome wound became a light pink scar coiling across Fugaku's abdomen. Fugaku looked at his healed wound in shock. Minato's face broke into a joyful smile. Amazing. Minato looked at Haruki and said, your medical ninjutsu is amazing. Ding. System detected Minato's gratitude value plus 5000. Your gratitude curse growth value has increased to 27.5%. Haruki smiled at Minato. Because the teacher who taught me medical ninjutsu is very powerful. Kazuo exclaimed, truly remarkable. To have mastered medical ninjutsu to such perfection at such a young age. It was their luck to meet this boy on this road today. Ding. System detected Kazuo's gratitude value plus 5000. Your gratitude curse growth value has increased to 28%. Kazuo's expression changed. Before she could be happy for another second, she grabbed Haruki and hugged him. She said, hurry, they're about to catch up. Nagato was picked up by Minato, and they quickly ran forward. Fugaku was only a second slower, and after reacting, he immediately caught up with them. No longer affected by the abdominal wound, his speed nearly doubled. Their entire team's speed increased. Kazuo's face was serious as she ran forward relentlessly. Haruki looked at their direction of travel and found the path very familiar. It was the same path he and Nagato had taken when they had arrived. The uninhabited houses inexplicably appeared in Haruki's mind. Their destination wouldn't be there, would it? Soon, some familiar houses appeared in Haruki's line of sight. Haruki looked at Kazuo curiously. What exactly were they here to do? What was the mission Konoha gave them? There was no one here, what were they doing here? Haruki and Nagato were quickly put down. Fugaku, you protect them here. Minato and I will go execute the mission. Kazuo arranged. Fugaku frowned, about to retort, but Kazuo interrupted him. Although your wound has healed, your body and strength haven't fully recovered. Stay here. Protect them. They need your protection. Kazuo reached out to pat Haruki and Nagato's heads, but they both dodged simultaneously. Kazuo, you brats. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-181. Fugaku, don't play the hero. Pub Future Ads. Chapter 181. Fugaku, don't play the hero. Fugaku looked at the two teenagers in front of him. He hesitated for only a second before saying to Kazuo, be careful. Don't worry. Kazuo and Minato quickly entered the room, their figures disappearing from sight. Haruki watched their retreating figures, a hint of doubt flashing in his eyes. He and Nagato had checked room after room, and there was nothing inside except dust and cobwebs. The owners had clearly fled. Follow me, Fugaku said to the two teenagers in front of him. Nagato looked at Haruki. Haruki nodded. They followed behind Fugaku. Haruki stepped on the harder floor, the change in sensation making him look down. The border of the land of grass was vast grasslands, only transitioning to shrubland and forest closer to the interior. From the moment he entered the land of grass, the ground beneath his feet had been soft, and damp grass roots would occasionally wet his shoes. But from the moment they walked into this uninhabited small village, the ground became harder, the grass shorter, and the grass roots no longer had dewy moisture. This indicated that there was something underground. Haruki glanced at the house Kazuo and Minato had entered, they still hadn't come out. Pub Future Ads. Haruki and Nagato had been inside every room here. Without a secret passage or a hidden room, it was impossible for Kazuo and Minato to stay inside for so long. Fugaku led Haruki and Nagato to hide behind the last house. He surveyed the surroundings, his brows tightly furrowed. The environment at the border of the land of grass was too unsuitable for hiding. The land was open, and it was difficult to find even a single cover. As long as someone appeared here, they could be seen from afar at a glance. Thinking of Kazuo and Minato, a deep worry flashed in Fugaku's dark eyes. His gaze quickly fell upon Haruki and Nagato. Fugaku squatted down, staring at Haruki and Nagato as he spoke. I don't know what your true purpose for coming to the land of grass is, but you'd best return to your land of rain now. Otherwise, Iwagakure will not show mercy just because you are young. After speaking, he watched the reactions of the two teenagers intently. To Fugaku's disappointment, they showed no reaction, as if they hadn't heard his warning. Haruki looked into Fugaku's eyes, speaking each word distinctly. Since we have already arrived in the land of grass, we will not leave. At least, we will only leave here after the war in the land of grass has subsided and the civilians are no longer suffering. Fugaku frowned, staring coldly at Haruki. Do you know what you're saying? HMPH. Before Haruki could answer, he began to undermine Haruki's confidence. Naive. Do you think courage alone can stop war? Do you think your strength alone can save everyone? Stop dreaming. You should just stay safely in the land of rain where the war has subsided, instead of trying to be a hero here. Haruki stared back at him without yielding, saying, if I weren't here playing the hero, you'd already be dead. Fugaku took a deep breath and averted his gaze. He looked at the blue sky above. Although the process had changed, the outcome would not. Entrusting such a mission to the three of them, wasn't it just sending them to their deaths? A hint of sarcasm flashed in Fugaku's eyes. His peripheral vision swept past the two teenagers beside him. It was just that there was no need to involve two innocent people in their deaths. The items are buried. A familiar voice sounded in Fugaku's ear. He turned and found that Kazu and Minato had appeared behind him. Fugaku's heart tightened. Kazu keenly said, Fugaku, what were you just thinking about? You were too engrossed. You didn't even react when we appeared behind you. If it had been an enemy, you'd be dead by now. Minato glanced at Fugaku, trying to smooth things over. Let's leave quickly. This place is about to explode. We'll retreat under the cover of the smoke from the explosion. Fugaku nodded. Kazu's hand reached out towards Haruki, who dodged. I can walk by myself. Don't worry. He touched the ring on his finger, calming the somewhat anxious Rika. Time was running out. Kazu didn't force Haruki into her arms, but instead admonished him, you must keep close to us. Haruki nodded. A fierce blaze suddenly shot out from deep underground within the house. The deafening roar of the explosion made their eardrums ache. The air was rapidly compressed, and a powerful shockwave expanded wildly in a spherical shape from the basement's center. The ground trembled violently as if in an earthquake. The house where Haruki and the others were hiding shook violently, and sawdust and dust fell in a steady stream. The ground was easily blasted open like a fragile eggshell. Huge cracks spread in all directions at an astonishing speed. Fire, thick smoke, sawdust, dust. Everything on the ground was propelled high into the sky. Kazu, Minato, and Fugaku began to move under the cover of the rolling thick smoke. Haruki and Nagato followed closely behind them. Haruki looked back at the source of the explosion, which had already become a pile of ruins. When the explosion occurred, he saw countless metal fragments blasted high into the sky, scattering like shrapnel in all directions, littering the ground. He bumped into Minato's back. Minato and the other two stopped. The three of them shielded Haruki and Nagato behind them, gravely looking at the dense black shadows appearing in the dust and smoke around them. Killing intent was almost solidifying. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-182. Facing Iowa Ninjas. Chapter 182. Facing Iowa Ninjas. The deafening aftershocks from 100 explosive tags detonating simultaneously had not yet fully subsided. The air was filled with the scorching scent of gunpowder. The soaring flames and thick smoke had gradually dissipated. The explosion had torn a gruesome scar across the grassland. Haruki's vision, previously obscured by the dense smoke, gradually cleared. Beyond the dust and smoke, there were people. Innumerable figures emerged silently, surrounding Haruki and his companions, leaving no escape. Minato's heart immediately sank to a freezing point. He looked at the surrounding Iowa ninjas. The Iowa ninjas stood before them like immovable rocks, their eyes filled with fury and hatred. Their gazes were uniformly fixed on Minato and his two companions. Undisguised, pure killing intent surged towards Minato and his companions. Fugaku's expression subtly darkened. The Iowa ninjas' hands rested on their weapons, poised for action. A suffocating sense of oppression, like a massive boulder, weighed down on the chests of Minato and his two companions. If it were just Minato and his two companions, they might not have felt pressured. Such was the life of a ninja, one never knew when death might come. Everyone was prepared for sacrifice when heading to the battlefield. But the two youths behind them were innocent. They were neither Konoha ninjas nor Iowa ninjas. They were innocent bystanders caught in the war. Standing in front of nearly 100 Iowa ninjas was an exceptionally tall and burly Iowa Jonin. He had a gruesome scar on his face and eyes like a hawk. His rough, hoarse voice rang out, trading a frontline weapons depot for a pair of Sharingan. This deal isn't a loss. The Iowa Jonin stared at Fugaku's dark eyes. Fugaku calmly met the Iowa Jonin's gaze. Even if it meant death, he would not allow the Uchiha clan's Sharingan to fall into outsider hands. The Sharingan falling into enemy hands would be an immense disgrace for the Uchiha clan. Fugaku's face flashed with the pride and resolve of the Uchiha clan. Minato's fingers, gripping his kunai, turned white at the knuckles from the force, his expression calm. No, he couldn't die. He hadn't gone back to see Kushina yet. Kazu and Fugaku couldn't die either. Minato's brain began calculating at an unprecedented speed. Calculating distance, calculating angles, calculating every tiny gap. He had to survive. He had to protect his comrades. Only this firm belief existed in Minato's mind. The Iwa ninjas watched them indifferently, a flicker of vengeful satisfaction occasionally crossing their eyes. Finally, they could avenge their comrades who had died at the hands of Konoha ninjas. Haruki felt his sleeve being tugged. He turned his head and saw Nagato, whose face was slightly pale. "Haruki, let's escape," Nagato whispered, his voice low, into Haruki's ear. This war had nothing to do with them. They didn't need to leave their lives here. Haruki clasped Nagato's cold hand in return. "Trust me, Nagato." Haruki looked into Nagato's eyes and said, "I will protect you." Ding. System detected Nagato's affection value plus 3000. Your love curse growth value has risen to 52.2%. Haruki, I will protect you too. Nagato's expression firmed. His gaze pierced the Iwa ninjas who had them surrounded. This was his first time feeling the pressure of the battlefield, and it was suffocating. However, as long as one had someone they wanted to protect with their life, no matter how powerful the enemy before them, they would not feel fear. Ads by PubFuture. Haruki had stood in front of him to protect him too many times. This time, he wanted to stand in front of Haruki to protect him. What's the deal with those two brats behind them? Haruki in Nagato's presence couldn't escape the sharp eyes of these ninjas. I don't know, never seen them. They don't look like Konoha ninjas either. Where did they come from? Don't worry about it, just kill them. Anyone mixed up with Konoha ninjas isn't good either. Just kill them all. Root them out. Quote. The whispers of the Iwa ninjas reached Minato and his companion's ears. Kazu gritted her teeth. Damn it, these bastards. You Konoha ninjas don't seem to have the right to say that. Hearing Kazu's voice, the Iwa Jonin sneered, sparks of hatred flashing in his eyes. You've also killed no small number of children on the battlefield. Does that mean your Iwagakure is any better for sending children to the battlefield? Kazu said, at least we in Konoha don't send children who haven't even graduated from the academy to the battlefield. No need to waste words with them. Attack directly. The Iwa Jonin took a deep breath and drew the long sword in his hand. Haruki squeezed out from between Fugaku and Minato. He was too fast and too sudden. Minato and Fugaku didn't even react. Minato and his companions had not expected Haruki to dare to step out at this moment. Nagato was about to repeat Haruki's action and stand beside him, but Minato and Fugaku immediately stopped him. Hey, you're being too reckless. Do you know what time it is? Get back and hide obediently. Kazu's nerves were taut. She hadn't expected this black-haired youth to be so bold. She had thought he was obedient before, but now it seemed he was a devil child. Kazu's hand pressed on Haruki's shoulder, wanting to pull him back behind her. According to the current situation, the Iwa ninjas were very likely to make an example of him. The Iwa ninjas looked at this brat who had impatiently jumped out to court death, not even frowning. Ding. System detected Iwa ninja A's killing intent value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Iwa ninja B's killing intent value plus 3000. Ding. System detected Iwa ninja C's killing intent value plus 3000. Currently collected killing intent value totals 18,000. Your slaughter curse growth value has risen to 8.4%. End of chapter. New story. Fairy tale. Multiversal travel. Ryomen mysteriously transmigrates to the world of fairy tale. But unfortunately, he remains a non-mage for 7 years, becoming an ordinary person in the guild. But one day, the dormant dimensional power in his body throws him into the Demon Slayer world. There, his ice breathing merges with his magic power, and finally, he gets an effective magic, ice magic. And this was just the beginning. The dimensional power within him erupted from time to time, throwing him into various different worlds again and again. Ice magic from Demon Slayer's breathing style, Space-time magic from Black Clover's grimoire, Conqueror's Haki, Imperial tools, Zanpakuto. Each time he returns, only a moment passes in the fairy tale world, but he rises with new powers. With these newfound powers, Ryomen will eventually write the legend of the Dimensional Mage. Naruto, Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C-183, Useless Talk no Jutsu. Chapter 183, Useless Talk no Jutsu. Dust in the air danced restlessly. Battle was imminent. Many Iwa ninjas' murderous gazes fell upon Haruki. There was no mercy on the battlefield. Mercy towards an enemy was cruelty towards oneself. Ninjas didn't need such a thing as mercy. If blame was to be assigned, it could only be that this kid had bad luck. Please wait. Haruki, standing in front of Minato, suddenly spoke, his voice calm and firm, a stark contrast to his appearance. He faced Iwagakure's 100-man squad directly, his body small, especially when contrasted with the large figures of the Iwa NJNJAS. The Iwa ninjas frowned slightly. This kid certainly had courage. Since they were destined to die here today, there was no harm in giving them a chance to say their last words. Minato subconsciously reached out to pull Haruki behind him, but Haruki gently shook his head, his gaze firm as he continued to take a few steps forward. He looked straight ahead at the Iwa ninjas before him. Before the battle begins, could you tell me why you want to kill Konoha ninjas? A low chuckle echoed through the Iwagakure squad. They looked at Haruki mockingly. Why kill Konoha ninjas? Why didn't he ask why Konoha ninjas wanted to kill Iwa ninjas? The Iwa Jonin's cold gaze swept over Haruki as he said, war needs no reason. Kid, you only need to know that Konoha and Iwagakure are at war, that's enough. Haruki agreed with this answer, but his persona did not. But war needs a reason. Haruki insisted. Killing also needs a reason. The Iwa Jonin narrowed his eyes, took a deep breath, and slowly said, last month, Iwagakure lost nearly 3,000 ninjas in its conflict with Konoha. Isn't that a reason? We are here for revenge. Haruki looked earnestly at the Iwa Jonin, his eyes clear, without hatred, only sadness for the lives lost in the war. I am sorry to hear that. In the war between Iwagakure and Konoha, Iwagakure shouldn't be the only one to lose companions, right? Konoha has also lost many ninjas, and the people of the Land of Grass, they are the most innocent. You are not the only ones who have lost companions, nor are you the only ones suffering, so why continue to create pain and slaughter? Hatred only creates more hatred, doesn't it? Haruki looked at the Iwa Jonin in confusion, as if he didn't understand their thoughts. Ding. System detected Minato's affection value plus 3,000. Your love curse growth value has increased to 52.5%. Ads by PubFuture. Minato hadn't expected to hear such words from a young boy. The last time he heard such a statement was from his sensei, Jiraiya. This time, he heard it from a stranger, a young boy. Haruki's words made the Iwa Jonin sneer. Naive. If we let go of hatred, the enemy will raise their weapons. We will only lose more companions. The Iwa Jonin's tone shifted, and he continued, moreover, the ninja world is inherently a place where the strong prey on the weak. You Konoha occupy the most fertile land, enjoy the richest resources, and naturally become the target of all. Haruki. What hatred, what companions, in the end, it was all for profit. Haruki retorted, can resource issues really be solved through war? Isn't the way to solve problems for everyone to work together? The Iwa Jonin scoffed. Enough. Kid, I don't want to hear your naive statements anymore. Haruki was expressionless. You can choose not to listen, but you can't interrupt my performance. Before we kill each other, I want to ask, do we really have no other solution? Are ninjas only meant to exist as tools of slaughter? The first Hokage established Konoha, and the first Tsuchikage established Iwagakure, weren't they all for the sake of protecting important people and creating peace? When did we forget our initial ideals? Haruki's eyes were filled with confusion. He stared intently at the Iwa ninjas opposite him. The Iwa Jonin was silent for a moment, and the ninjas around him also said nothing. I have to admit, you're very articulate, but sweet talk won't win a war. Sweet talk won't stop a war either. Peace can only be seized by our own hands. The Iwa Jonin clenched his fists, his eyes gleaming with determination. Haruki. Why? Why is this? Why can Naruto succeed with sweet talk, but he can't? Is it just because Naruto is the protagonist? Isn't he also a protagonist? At least give him some protagonist treatment, make these ninjas move. Peace isn't seized. Violence can never bring peace. Haruki shouted at the Iwa Jonin, his voice imbued with deep emotion. I am an orphan of war, I have also participated in war, been on the battlefield. Relying on violence, you will never achieve peace. And you will never protect peace. The Iwa Jonin stared at Haruki. He raised the long sword in his hand, his eyes cold. I regret to say, no matter what you say, today we will cut you down here. The Iwa Jonin paused, then honestly added, however, you have good eloquence. Haruki. Why did the Iwa Jonin add that last sentence? Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's template. C 184,184, so many monkeys. Pub Future adds. Attack. Kill them. Avenge our fallen comrades. The Iwa Jonin let out a furious roar. 100 Iwa ninjas launched their attacks without hesitation. Earth Release. Fissure. Earth Release. Stone Spikes. Earth Release. Earth Flow Spears. Quote. Boom. With a loud bang, the ground beneath Haruki and the others suddenly split open with a huge fissure. The fissure was like a gaping maw, attempting to swallow them whole. At the same time, countless sharp, hard rock staffs condensed in the sky, shooting towards Haruki and the others from all directions like a tempest. Not only that, but incredibly sharp rock spears burst from the ground, piercing towards their vital points at an astonishing speed. Haruki's words had no effect whatsoever. The battle fully erupted. Fugaku's Sharingan spun wildly in his eyes, and he precisely dodged all attacks. Kazu frantically swung her hammer, shattering all incoming rock staffs and rock spears that emerged from the ground. For a moment, shattered rocks flew everywhere, and smoke billowed. Haruki's expression was quite something when he saw Kazu take out her meteor hammer. Combined Earth Release. Mountain Earth Technique. 30 Iwa ninjas simultaneously completed their hand seals, and vast chakra poured into the earth. Boom! The ground seemed to be lifted by an invisible giant hand, emitting a deafening roar, and the massive raised ground abruptly closed in on the 5 people, including Haruki, in the center. Pub Future adds. The sky was quickly obscured by the rapidly closing ground, and the light instantly dimmed. Oh no! Kazu's hammer could shatter ninjutsu attacks, but facing 2 pieces of ground this large, she would need a hammer at least the size of a person to smash them. Minato. Fugaku looked at Minato next to him and asked, can your technique be used? In such a situation, besides Minato's Flying Thunder God, he couldn't think of any other solution for a moment. Minato gritted his teeth. If the Flying Thunder God were used without having fully mastered it. Minato's brows furrowed. Haruki's hand was suddenly grabbed by Nagato. He turned to look at Nagato, whose face was as pale as paper. His pupils were fixed on the group of Iwa ninjas. I told you, I will definitely protect you. The eerie glow of the Rinnegan swirled. Haruki immediately pressed down on the impulsive Nagato. Nagato, don't be reckless. He looked at Nagato and slowly said, trust me. I can do it. The chakra surging wildly within Nagato's body immediately stopped. Ding. System detected Nagato's affection value plus 3000. Your love curse growth value has increased to 52.8%. Haruki looked at Kazu, who was protecting him from behind, and then at Minato, who seemed to have made some kind of decision. Just because he hadn't been able to copy Minato's Flying Thunder God yet, Minato couldn't die here. Haruki had many ways to resolve the current predicament. The first method. The brute force approach. Directly summon Rika and aim, letting them transform into their complete forms, and smash the ground pressing down on them. This method was the most time and effort saving, but it wouldn't work. Rika was too obvious and would easily expose his identity. In the ninja world's intel about him, Rika had already been listed as a cursed spirit. Haruki's identity was, after all, the disciple of a Megacurse demigod, Hanzo. His every move could easily cause international disputes. He didn't want to bring calamity to a Megacure. The second method. The transfer method. Use Takako's technique to transfer the space beneath their feet to a safe place. It could even move the spatial plane beneath them thousands of miles away. But this was too dependent on precise execution. Haruki didn't have complete confidence. After comprehensive consideration, Haruki chose the third method. A cold aura appeared without warning beside him. Space seemed to be twisted by some invisible force. A purple-black vortex appeared out of thin air. The vortex silently spun, continuously expanding. Kazu, as a sensory ninja, immediately noticed something was wrong. She sharply turned her head to look at the purple vortex next to Haruki, her pupils suddenly constricting. "What is that thing?" Fugaku's voice had just fallen when the purple vortex rapidly expanded to over one person's height, and within the purple vortex was rotating darkness. A figure slowly emerged from it. He was tall and wore a loose, dark blue monk's robe. His long black hair was tied into a half bun at the back of his head, with a few strands of bangs casually falling. He had a half smile on his face, and his gaze swept past Haruki, then across Minato and the others, and the Iwa ninjas. 1 monkey, 2 monkeys, 3 monkeys, 4 monkeys, 5 monkeys, 6 monkeys, 7 monkeys, quote. Why are there so many monkeys? I can't even count them anymore. Haruki, who understood what Suguru was saying, was speechless. Kazu's pupils trembled. This person, how did he appear here? Space-time ninjutsu. Kazu instinctively looked at Minato. Minato stared gravely at the strange man in the monk's robe before him. He didn't sense the presence of chakra on this man, yet an aura that made his entire body shiver emanated from him. What exactly was going on? This man just emerged from that purple vortex, didn't he? What monkeys? Fugaku vigilantly stared at the man before him. Why was he counting monkeys? No, more importantly, where were the monkeys here? Seeing these monkeys disgusts me. Suguru's lips curved into a smile, but his eyes were utterly devoid of warmth, cold and indifferent. Fugaku could finally confirm the guess in his mind this time. The monkeys this monk-like man spoke of were them. Damn it, to call people monkeys was far too arrogant. Who are you? How did you appear here? What do you want? Kazu stared at the man in the monk's robe before her, asking cautiously. The crisis with the Iwa ninjas hadn't been resolved, and now such a man had appeared. Fortunately, this man's appearance caused the Iwa ninjas' attack to pause. Shut up, I don't want to talk to monkeys. The smile on Suguru's lips abruptly vanished. Haruki, Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 185185, escaping on the Rainbow Dragon. Pub Future adds, summon the Rainbow Dragon and let's get out of here. Haruki said, looking at Suguru. Suguru, as expected of someone from modern society, was almost a head taller than Minato, who was from the ninja world. Modern society truly offers better nutrition. For his future height, he needed to eat a balanced diet from now on. Suguru smiled at Haruki and asked, do we really have to bring these monkeys too? I'm afraid the Rainbow Dragon might get a monkey smell on it, and then the Rainbow Dragon might get angry. Haruki stared at Suguru, stating with certainty, the Rainbow Dragon won't get angry. The only one who would get angry was Suguru, who suffered from severe monkey phobia. The Iwa ninjas' attacks paused, their wary gazes falling on the suddenly appearing Suguru. When did that man appear? Is he a Konoha ninja too? Could it be a space-time ninjutsu? No, he doesn't seem to be a Konoha ninja. Quote. Hearing the Iwa ninjas' discussion, Suguru frowned in disgust. He turned to look at the dense crowd of Iwa ninjas, shaking his head firmly. No. I can't stay with so many monkeys. The monkey smell here is overwhelming. Suguru sighed helplessly, as if he had encountered some troublesome matter. If he was destined to be with monkeys, then he chose to be with a small number of monkeys. No other choice. Suguru slowly raised a hand, fingers splayed. A massive cursed energy surged from his body. Pub Future adds, the power was cold and evil, completely different from the feeling chakra gave, carrying pure negative energy. Suguru said softly, come out, Rainbow Dragon. The next second, an earth-shattering dragon roar echoed across the entire grassland. A colossal creature appeared out of thin air in the sky behind Suguru. Its entire body was pure white and blue, not at all like a curse, its body winding and coiling, immense in size. What is that thing? An Iwa ninja exclaimed, looking at the Rainbow Dragon. It must be a summoning beast. It has to be a summoning beast. They want to run. Attack that monster too. The Iwa Jonin roared, his voice hoarse. Don't let them escape. Move. Countless ninjutsu, shuriken, and explosive tags rained down on the Rainbow Dragon and Suguru. The Rainbow Dragon let out a deafening roar. Its giant tail swept with terrifying force. The ground that was pressing towards Haruki and the others was slammed towards the Iwa ninjas by the Rainbow Dragon. Boom. The incredibly hard ground instantly pressed down on the Iwa ninjas. Shattered rocks in the air fell like a downpour. The Iwa ninjas dodged in a sorry state. Don't get too entangled with these monkeys. A monkey smell. I don't want to get stained by it, Suguru said, patting his monk's robe, which had no dust on it, and instructing the Rainbow Dragon. Minato and the others stared blankly at the scene before them. Their gazes shifted back and forth between Haruki and Suguru, guessing the relationship between them. Nagato looked at the Rainbow Dragon flying in the sky, a strange light flickering in his eyes. Grab onto its body, Suguru said, pointing to a section of the Rainbow Dragon's body that hung down, his tone unyielding. Or be thrown off and turned into meat paste. I'm not responsible. No, his tone changed. I'm really looking forward to you all turning into monkey paste. How disgusting, Suguru said to Minato and the others with malice. Haruki. His mind was now full of monkeys. The Rainbow Dragon lowered its height, its massive body bringing a suffocating sense of oppression. Minato, Fugaku, and Kazu quickly exchanged glances. They didn't trust the man before them, but they trusted the two boys. Go, Minato decided instantly. He hugged Haruki and was the first to leap onto the Rainbow Dragon's cold back. Kazu and Fugaku followed closely. Kazu scooped up the dazed Nagato into her arms. Nagato, sitting on the dragon, couldn't help but reach out and touch the giant dragon beneath him. Suguru lightly leapt onto the dragon's head and slowly sat down. He deliberately distanced himself from Minato behind him. Dead monkey, stay away from me. Minato scratched the back of his head awkwardly and said, I'm not a monkey. If I say you are, then you are. Without cursed energy, aren't they just monkeys? Suguru looked down at the Iwa ninjas surging like a tide below, and the dazzling ninjutsu, a mocking smile appearing on his face. Rainbow Dragon, let's go. The Rainbow Dragon let out a long roar. The Rainbow Dragon's massive body twisted sharply, carrying Haruki and the others on its back, soaring into the sky at astonishing speed. A hurricane rushed at them, making it almost impossible for Haruki and the others to open their eyes. The grassland below, the ant-sized Iwa ninjas, ninjutsu, ruins, all sorts of weapons. Everything rapidly shrank in Haruki and the others' line of sight. Damn it, bastards, stop. The enraged voices of the Iwa ninjas faintly sounded from below, but were soon swallowed by the wind. The Rainbow Dragon soared beneath the blue sky. Below were the continuous grasslands and forests of the land of grass. Minato, Fugaku, and Kazu all tensed their bodies, vigilantly watching Suguru, who sat on the dragon's head. Everything happened too fast, too unexpectedly. Haruki held onto the Rainbow Dragon, looking at the rapidly passing scenery below. A windowless airplane, not bad at all. Great view. Suguru turned around, his wide monk's sleeves flapping in the wind. He glanced at the few people behind him with disdain. We still don't know your name. Minato tried to speak, politely introducing himself. My name is Minato Namikaze, a Konoha ninja. Thank you for saving us today. Suguru stared at Minato and said, I don't talk to monkeys. Minato, the man before him, who kept calling everyone monkeys, was impossible to communicate with. By the way, I haven't asked for your names yet. Minato tilted his head slightly, looking at Haruki and Nagato. My name is Haruki, and his name is Nagato. Haruki said with a smile. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 186,186, only Minato is a monkey. Pub Future adds. Haruki. Minato's pupils contracted. Behind Haruki and Nagato, Kazu and Fugaku reacted the same way as Minato when they heard that name. Their shocked gazes fell upon Haruki. The same name. Impossible. They remembered what Haruki had said earlier. He said they came from the land of rain. The disciple of Hanzo, the demigod of the land of rain, Haruki. This name had long been famous throughout the ninja world with the end of the Land of Rain's war. Although he wasn't as renowned and awe-inspiring as Konoha White Fang, he stood out due to his unique abilities. He left a deep impression on everyone who had seen his intel. Minato never would have imagined that Haruki, a person of special status in the Land of Rain, would come to the Land of Grass battlefield and save them. Why are you in the Land of Grass? The wind howled, and Minato could barely make his voice heard, almost screaming. Haruki said to Minato with a smile, I came to end the war in the Land of Grass, so that civilians and ninjas would no longer be injured. Minato was stunned. How remarkable. A warm smile gradually appeared on his face. To do something so brave and great at such a young age. Then, does your sensei, Hanzo, know? Minato couldn't help but ask. For a disciple to go to such a dangerous battlefield, as a teacher, he must be very worried. Pub Future adds. Haruki shook his head and said, of course, he doesn't know. What if Hanzo knew? Hanzo probably still thought he was diligently expelling ninja and samurai from other countries in the Land of Rain. Minato. He knew that as a teacher, he would definitely not be at ease with his student coming to the battlefield. Fugaku commented coldly, it sounds unrealistic, like a pipe dream. Nagato immediately looked at Fugaku. Haruki can do it, whatever he says, he can do. The strong wind lifted Nagato's red hair, revealing those unforgettable Rinnegan. Fugaku's pupils contracted, staring intently at Nagato. Kazu was also startled. This child, those eyes. Kazu stared at those eyes, feeling a tightness in her chest, and quickly averted her gaze. How could there be such eyes? Fugaku slowly lowered his eyes. Those eyes were the legendary eyes of the Sage of Six Paths. These two youths were too astonishing. One possessed the unheard of curse power, and the other had the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths. No wonder they dared to go to the war-torn Land of Grass. I believe Haruki can do it. It was Minato who said this. Minato clenched his fists, his eyes full of encouragement, and he looked at Haruki seriously. I believe you can do it. Ding. System detected Minato's affection value plus 3000. Your love curse growth value has risen to 53.1%. Kazu smiled and sincerely said to Haruki, thank you for saving us, Haruki. Ding. System detected Kazu's gratitude value plus 3000. Your gratitude curse growth value has risen to 28.3%. Fugaku crossed his arms, his dark eyes sweeping over Haruki, and he cleared his throat. Thank you. I will remember your life-saving kindness. Ding. System detected Fugaku's gratitude value plus 3000. Your gratitude curse growth value has risen to 28.6%. Haruki glanced at Fugaku. With Fugaku's dark expression, one who didn't know would think he was remembering a grudge. The rainbow dragon soared above the Land of Grass, flying into the clouds. Minato said to the monk-robed man in front, just drop us off in the canyon ahead. Suguru frowned, controlling the rainbow dragon to slowly descend. As soon as they reached a safe distance, he impatiently urged, get down. Minato. He had already gotten used to the personality of this monk-robed man. He jumped off the rainbow dragon. Kazu and Fugaku stood beside Minato. They looked at Haruki, who was riding on the rainbow dragon's back, and suddenly felt a bit of reluctance. Minato sighed in his heart. If only Haruki belonged to Konoha. Minato extended an invitation, Haruki, if you have a chance, come visit Konoha. Kazu and Fugaku looked at Minato in surprise. Forget about the current war. Even if it wasn't wartime, as ordinary ninja, they couldn't just casually invite ninja from other countries to visit Konoha. Okay. Haruki didn't care if Minato was sincere or not. Since Minato invited him, he would definitely go. Then we'll be going now. Haruki waved to Minato and the others. We'll definitely have a chance to meet again. Suguru controlled the rainbow dragon, and it shot into the sky. Minato watched the rainbow dragon's figure disappear into the clouds. He took a deep breath and secretly vowed in his heart. He must perfectly master the Flying Thunder God technique. I never thought Haruki would be such a person. Kazu exclaimed. Minato looked at Kazu. Kazu shrugged. The intel described him as quite terrifying. Thinking of the description in the intel, Kazu's expression was complicated. The Haruki in the intel was practically a born little pervert. Minato rubbed his chin and speculated, was that man just now also his curse? Kazu said, that was clearly a person, wasn't it? Fugaku added, didn't the intel say he had a humanoid curse? Minato sighed, calling humans monkeys, it must be a curse, right? He asked seriously, "Do we really look like monkeys?" Kazu said, "Don't include us, just you." Fugaku said, "Agreed." Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 187187, a world led by Haruki. Pub Future adds. A rainbow dragon soared through the clouds. Its massive body cut through the thin cloud layer. White scales gleamed silver in the sunlight. Haruki sat behind Suguru. He heard Suguru sigh in relief from in front of him. The monkey smell is finally gone. Haruki. Just how deep was Suguru's obsession with monkeys? Suguru's black hair danced wildly in the strong wind. He turned his head, his purple eyes slightly narrowed, staring at Nagato behind Haruki. "But there's still one little monkey." Haruki pretended not to hear Suguru's words. He looked down at the vast, clear territory of the land of grass below. The high-altitude view was awesome. "Where is this place? It looks very backward. There aren't even any cursed spirits." Suguru's voice sounded from in front of Haruki, his wide monk's robe sleeves flapping in the wind. Hearing Suguru's words, Haruki explained, "This is the ninja world, there are no cursed spirits here." Suguru stroked his chin, and thoughtfully said, "Ninja world. Those monkeys just now said they were ninja. I didn't expect ninja to actually still exist." Nagato held onto the back hem of Haruki's top, sitting quietly on the rainbow dragon. His Rinnegan reflected the cloud shadows rapidly receding behind them, and a hint of joy actually appeared on his usually expressionless face. He looked at the back of Haruki's head and smiled slightly. "This is great." Pub Future adds. He had said that Haruki could do everything Haruki said he would. He would always believe in Haruki. Nagato lowered his head, looking down. At this moment, the rainbow dragon gradually began to descend, passing through the clouds, and the scene below gradually became clear. The towns of the land of grass looked like scattered building blocks from high above, with crisscrossing streets and neatly arranged houses. Upon closer inspection, many buildings were in ruins, pedestrians were scarce on the streets, and occasionally a few wisps of black smoke rose from the edge of the town. Haruki looked at the scorched areas below, a heavy sigh in his heart. The rainbow dragon continued to fly forward, and the edge of the town was gradually replaced by a battlefield. The land here had been thoroughly churned, with craters and scorched earth everywhere. Broken weapons were half buried in the soil, and shattered forehead protectors were scattered everywhere. It seems that even without cursed spirits, there are things more terrifying than cursed spirits. A hint of sarcasm flashed in Suguru's eyes. Without cursed spirits, humans would kill each other. The destruction caused by war was greater than that caused by cursed spirits. It seemed that no matter the era or space, humans could never live truly peaceful and tranquil lives. Yes, Haruki nodded in agreement. Those who start wars are not necessarily qualified leaders. But those who maintain peace are definitely qualified leaders. Suguru's hands were tucked into his sleeves, his eyes narrowed, his expression relaxed. Although there was war in this era, he still loathed cursed spirits the most, more than war itself. A world not contaminated by cursed spirits was wonderful. Suguru smiled contentedly. Haruki is the most qualified leader. Nagato's voice sounded from behind Haruki. Haruki almost lost his balance and fell off the rainbow dragon's back. He turned to look at Nagato behind him. Nagato's eyes gleamed with firm light. He stared unmoving at Haruki and repeated, "I believe a world led by Haruki will have no wars." Nibi no Jutsu was the best example. Haruki's mind was full of various ingenious ideas. He always knew how to eliminate conflicts between people. Ding. System detected Nagato's faith value plus 3000. Your cursed spirit Suguru's rank has increased to 74.3%. Haruki hadn't expected Nagato to have such confidence in him. He gracefully accepted Nagato's praise. "I don't want to lead the world. I just want the world to develop peacefully and stably." Haruki clenched his fists. Suguru looked back at him, a subtle smile on his lips. Naive belief. How could the world develop peacefully and stably? As long as humans existed, conflict and desire would always exist. Haruki said to Suguru, "Let's find a place to land where we won't be seen." They couldn't just keep flying in the sky. He and Nagato needed to eat. Under Suguru's control, the rainbow dragon began to circle down, approaching a small town located at the edge of the battlefield. Haruki and the others could see from the air that half of the town was severely damaged, while the other half was crowded with makeshift tents and shelters. Half of the people scurried like ants through the ruins, transporting supplies and rescuing the injured, while the other half sat in undamaged houses, leisurely and condescendingly watching these people busy themselves. The rainbow dragon gracefully swooped down, finally landing in a forest far from the town, a forest that separated the town from the battlefield. The three of them leapt from the dragon's back. The rainbow dragon disappeared beside Suguru. Haruki looked at Suguru, wondering if he should let Suguru leave too. Suguru seemed to read Haruki's intentions and said, "Let me stay a bit longer. I'm very curious about this world." Haruki was not one to be harsh with his cursed spirit, so he nodded generously. All right. The three of them walked towards the town. There were many traces of battle left in this forest. Although it was a buffer zone between the battlefield and the town, when war truly broke out, not all ninjas could control themselves. Just like the ruins in the town and the injured civilians within them, they were all innocent victims of war. Explosive tags, which ninjas could avoid, could easily destroy their gardens and take their lives. They walked out of the forest and arrived at the town. Their arrival did not attract much attention. People calmly, or more accurately, habitually glanced at them before looking away. This town had clearly been caught in the ninja wars multiple times. The walls of many houses were covered with the marks of shuriken and kunai. Some were burned to mere frameworks by fire. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 188188. Saving an Iowa ninja. Pub Future ads. Haruki, Nagato and Suguru passed by a temporary medical station in the town. It was crowded with injured people. It was called a medical station, but it was actually just a crude shed. Injured civilians were crammed onto wrinkled sheets spread on the ground. The sheets were covered in stains. The civilians let out miserable wails. Those busy in the shed were not medical ninja, but ordinary doctors. The doctors were bustling about, clearly understaffed. Haruki stopped, looking at the crude medical station. Nagato calmly watched the suffering people. His gaze turned towards Haruki beside him. Sure enough, Haruki subconsciously walked towards the medical station. Ding. System detected Nagato's affection value plus 3000. Your love curse growth value has risen to 53.4%. They need help. Haruki's eyes flickered with urgency. He walked into the shed without hesitation. The busy doctors didn't even spare him a glance. Haruki said, "Let me help you all." Before the doctors could respond, he squatted beside an injured civilian, placing his hands over the civilian's body. Soon, the wounds on the civilian's body stopped bleeding. The doctors exchanged glances, and one of them asked, "Are you a medical ninja?" Pub Future ads. Haruki nodded. Yes. Under his touch, the wounds on the civilian's body quickly healed. "Thank you." After saying this, the civilian fainted from exhaustion. Haruki continued to treat another person. The doctor asked sternly, "Are you a Konoha ninja or an Iowa ninja?" Haruki shook his head. "Neither." A doctor said sarcastically, "That's right, how could people like them treat civilians?" "Then where are you from?" A doctor asked Haruki while tending to a civilian's wounds. The doctor's peripheral vision fell on Haruki. In their eyes, he was still a half-grown child. He looked well-behaved, clearly a good kid. Haruki smiled at the doctors. "We are from the land of rain. The land of rain used to be like the land of grass is now. War destroyed our homes, but now the land of rain has ushered in peace. I believe the land of grass will also usher in peace soon." The doctors lowered their eyes bitterly, saying nothing. The land of rain was able to cease hostilities because the ninjas of the land of rain expelled the ninjas of the great nations, but the land of grass did not have Hanzo. "We came to the land of grass to help everyone," Haruki told the doctors. The doctors' expressions were complex. Their gazes swept over Nagato and Suguru behind Haruki. Nagato stood behind Haruki, expressionless, while Suguru's hands, tucked into his wide sleeves, never came out, and a smile was on his face. With Haruki's help, the efficiency of treatment greatly improved. By dusk, the civilians' wounds were finally healed. The doctors breathed a sigh of relief, looking at Haruki gratefully. They did not possess the ability to heal wounds quickly like medical ninja, so they could only perform traditional treatments, which were time-consuming, laborious, and not necessarily effective in dealing with wounds. Once a wound became infected, the person was basically beyond saving. Haruki declined the doctor's kind offer of lodging and continued deeper into the town with Nagato and Suguru. The further they walked towards the edge of the town, the more severe the signs of destruction became, and the fewer people there were. Haruki walked around scattered rubble and broken wood. Deep within the ruins, Haruki saw a hand covered in blood and dust. He squatted down and found a ninja pinned under a partially collapsed wall. The ninja was covered in blood, his breathing weak. He was still alive, surprisingly. Haruki dragged the ninja out, then half-squatted beside him, seeing the forehead protector hanging around the ninja's neck. He was an Iwa ninja. Haruki placed his hands on the ninja's chest, and light emanated from his palms. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, chakra almost depleted. He assessed the ninja's injuries. It was fortunate he encountered Haruki, otherwise this person would have surely died. Although the ninja's face was covered in dust, it seemed that he was a young man, appearing no older than 20, with a pale complexion, extremely weak breathing, and barely perceptible chest movements. Nagato stood beside Haruki, his rinnegan fixed on the ninja's face, his eyes filled with vigilance. His hand reached into his ninja tool pouch, his muscles tensed. As soon as the ninja made any sudden move, he would immediately slit his throat. Haruki must not be harmed. Time passed minute by minute. The ninja's eyelids trembled a few times. That was the prelude to waking up. A ninja's body was more than a little better than a civilian's. The ninja's eyes slowly opened. Before he could clearly see the situation before him, a sharp glint flashed in the ninja's eyes, and his hand abruptly reached for the ninja tool pouch on his body, but found nothing. Confusion flashed in the ninja's eyes, and his gaze turned sharp, staring at Haruki. "Who are you?" The ninja painstakingly uttered a syllable, his throat dry. He tried to get up, but his body had no strength at all. "Don't speak. Conserve your strength," Haruki said gently. Seeing the vigilance in the ninja's eyes, he reassured him, "We won't harm you. I am a medical ninja, and I just treated your injuries. You are safe now." The ninja's body remained tense. He moved his hands and was surprised to find that his injuries had indeed healed. Only his chakra had not yet recovered. The ninja looked at Haruki in shock. To possess such advanced medical ninjutsu at such a young age. Truly astonishing. The ninja's pupils shifted, unable to find anything on the young man before him that could prove his identity. However, he should not be a Konoha medical ninja. Konoha ninja would be eager to kill him, so how could they save him? "What is your name?" Haruki asked the ninja before him. Ding. System detected Aomori's gratitude value plus 2000. Your gratitude curse growth value has risen to 28.8%. Alright. No need for introductions, Haruki knew his name now. Naruto. Transmigrating with Yuta's Template. C 189189, Aoki's story. Pub Future ads. Pub Future ads. Who are you? Aoki didn't answer Haruki's question, but asked instead. Although the young man in front of him had saved him, he couldn't just lower his guard. What if it was an enemy's plot? While such a possibility was small, it shouldn't be ignored just because of its low probability. Haruki stared at the Iwa ninja named Aoki in front of him and said sincerely, "My name is Haruki, and I'm from the Land of Rain." Hearing that name, Aoki's pupils constricted. Haruki. Haruki of the Land of Rain. The disciple of the demigod Hanzo. The genius with curse power. The Haruki in front of him was completely different from the description in the intel he had received. The Haruki before him was like a friendly kid from the neighborhood in peacetime, making him feel an involuntary sense of closeness. Aoki hesitated for a moment before replying in a low voice, "My name is Aoki, an Iwa ninja." His voice was still hoarse, but much better than when he had just woken up. Pub Future ads. Aoki paused to catch his breath, then continued, "Our squad was attacked 2 days ago, and only I." He suddenly couldn't continue speaking. His throat choked, and pain and fear flashed in his eyes. Haruki could guess what had happened from Aoki's answer. "Thank you for saving me." As soon as Aoki finished speaking, he began to cough violently. "What do you plan to do next?" Haruki asked, looking at Aoki. Without waiting for Aoki's reply, Haruki continued to ask, can you return to your Iwagakure camp by yourself? Aoki's breathing gradually steadied. Hearing Haruki's question, a trace of fear quickly flashed in his eyes. His body stiffened, and he looked at Haruki, his deep brown eyes filled with helplessness. I don't want to go back. Aoki's voice trembled. After saying this, his face was pale, as if he had used all his strength. He lowered his head, not looking at Haruki. An unexpected answer. Haruki stared at Aoki in surprise and asked curiously, why? Nagato frowned, and the vigilance and rejection in his Rinnegan, fixed on Aoki, never disappeared. Suguru stared at Aoki with interest, a flicker of amusement in his narrow eyes. I know you must look down on me now. You think I'm a deserter. A rogue ninja. Aoki's head drooped lower and lower. He dared not meet Haruki's gaze, as if he would see mockery and disdain on their faces. But I just want to live. Aoki's voice became tearful. His throat felt as if it had been split open, and it grew even hoarser due to his overly agitated emotions. As soon as I go back, I'll be on the battlefield again. Aoki's emotions slowly calmed down. His voice was very soft, revealing a numb despair. Haruki looked at Aoki, who had his head down, and saw deep exhaustion in his eyes. War indeed ravaged both body and mind. Haruki advised him practically, his tone gentle, but you are an Iwa ninja after all. If you don't go back this time, you won't have a chance to go back in the future. For ninja like Aoki who miraculously survived the battlefield, they either returned quickly or forgot their Iwagakure identity, pretending they had died on the battlefield and living as a rogue ninja. The price for doing so was that they would never be able to return to their hometown with their former identity. New natural hack ignites rapid fat burn. No diet or exercise needed. 10 worst foods to eat after 50 must avoid. Aoki let out a bitter, light laugh, full of endless sorrow. Of course, he knew this fact, but he could no longer fight. The blood and corpses of his comrades tormented him constantly. I'm so tired. If I return to the Iwagakure camp, perhaps the next time I go to the battlefield, I will stay there forever, and I still won't be able to return to my hometown. Leaving the battlefield, although I can't return to my hometown, I can still look at it. Aoki struggled to sit up from the ground. Haruki reached out and helped him. Aoki was startled for a moment, then smiled at him. Thank you. Aoki leaned weakly against the wall behind him, his breathing heavy. 3 months ago, my best friend died in front of me. Aoki's expression was calm. He died saving me. From then on, I hated this world full of war. Haruki listened silently to Aoki's story. Why did he feel this story sounded a bit familiar? However, in times of war, such things happened every day, so it was not surprising. Complex emotions surged in Aoki's eyes. Then my sensei. Aoki stared blankly at the distant ruins and said, last month, to cover the retreat of the intelligence unit, she faced 10 enemy ninjas alone, and in the end, not even her body could be found. Aoki's voice began to tremble again. Now all my teammates are dead, and only I miraculously survived. But I don't feel lucky at all. I know what awaits me. After my wounds heal. No, I won't even wait for my wounds to heal. I will continue to participate in the war until one day I also become one of the statistics. Aoki suddenly grabbed Haruki's wrist with astonishing force. He stared at Haruki and said, word for word, I don't want to go back. I hate war. I hate endless slaughter. I hate that people who are by my side today might be killed tomorrow. I don't want to go back to that hell. Haruki believed that Aoki had said these words sincerely. Aoki's eyes were bloodshot, filled with hatred and fear. Haruki didn't pull away, but calmly asked, if you don't go back, where do you want to go? Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. End of chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/astrolicity. Contact. Choose. 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 End of chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/astrolicity. Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. End of chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/astrolicity. Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. Contact. Choose. Contact. twos, contact, twos, contact, twos, trending. New natural hack ignites rapid fat burn. No diet or exercise needed. Matalin. End of chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/astrolicity. Contact. Twos. Contact. Twos. Contact. Twos. Trending. 10 popular foods you should never eat after 50. Health natural. End of chapter. Goal equals 350 PS. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/astrolicity. Contact. Twos. Contact. Twos.